the fuck? No sound. What the fuck?
ESPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, my friends, it's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a lovely day. Thank you very much for alerting me in the chat that the sound wasn't working. You know, it doesn't matter how much I prepare, something always goes wrong. So I set my mic properly in Rumble Studio, and then for some reason, maybe because my computer fell asleep and then I came back to it, it switched it back to the incorrect microphone, which meant you didn't hear anything. Anyways, I got it fixed. Also, you can see from the thumbnail, big news coming from the FBI and the Secret Service and the DOJ in Minnesota. A roundup of Antifa-type terrorists, and also maybe some people who are not Antifa, but certainly misguided. There was a thwarted attack that was supposed to take place over the weekend at the UFC America 250 event on President Trump's birthday. And finally, we are seeing people charged after the operation in Minnesota from earlier this year. Fan is on my camera. Yes, it is. All right. So, looking forward to today's show. If you guys wouldn't mind, do me a favor, hit that like button. Help us out by sharing the show. And sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're getting into it right after this.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
3 boys taught me 2 things. Summer is an adventure and bugs are relentless. As an herbalist, I know you don't need harsh chemicals to protect your family. Here at Tamarack Garden, we've got you covered with natural sunscreen, mosquito and tick repellent that's even safe for your pets, a salve to draw out bug bites, and soothing sunburn cream, all made with the power of plants. Because we think summer memories should last longer than the bug bites. Tamarack Garden, protect your family naturally and eat your weeds.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome back, everyone. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. Let's see. So, a couple of different things happening here on the show. First of all, I need to adjust my pilled chat over here, and I need to refresh Twitter so that I can make sure that it's working. Looks like something went wrong, they said. Okay, everything is good now. All right, you guys. So as I said, we do have a lot to get through today. We are going to start with a couple of light items, but take a look on screen. You can see that Pilled has provided me with a new widget which has transparency for the chat. I don't have to actually do a screen capture now. It is a dedicated pilled chat widget, and it looks pretty sweet. It is very, very cool. So for everybody over there on Pilled that is chatting, you guys take note of that. I want to give a big shout out to the guys over there. All right, so I actually saw this clip yesterday, and I never got a chance to get to it. And then I saw that certain news outlets were actually starting to report on it. This was really tragic and horrific. So there was a cycling race that was taking place in Europe. And this woman on a mobility scooter scooted forward to try to get a better look, and she couldn't have come out at a worse time. She literally inserted herself into the middle of the race, and it caused a number of cyclists to fly off their bike pretty pretty violently. It was really bad. So this was in Germany. Looks like it took place over the weekend. I'm not like a huge cycling enthusiast, so I don't know much about this race, but I just figured we'd open with this video because this poor woman, of course, she has no concept of what she did, and then the people that are cycling, I mean, these poor guys, the race is basically over for them. Now, it happened so quickly, you might have missed it. So I'm going to go back, take a look about a third of the way up from the bottom on the right, and you can see her just scoot out, and she does it, and somebody just, boom, hits right into her. And that causes a whole bunch of other cyclists to fly off the handle and go down in the road. This guy looks to be pretty badly damaged. He's holding his back. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know the story about any of these guys, what happened, but geez, oh Pete's, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that was bad. That was bad. All right. Now, I also would like to give you an update on the story from Chicago. If you'll remember, shortly after the announcement of Carmelo Anthony's guilty verdict was read, there was someone in Chicago in a public park who lit a cross on fire. Now, immediately, the supporters of Carmelo Anthony and many in the BLM community suggested that this was an act of anti-black racism by some sort of white supremacist. And then we found out late last week that it was actually an Asian guy. Well, it's not just an Asian guy. It's a gay socialist Asian guy who lit the cross, and he claims that he did it because he wanted to make a statement about white Christian nationalists. I don't know. You can hear his logic in this clip.
I don't want to wait until he may or may not get impeached. I want him gone right now.
On that video, are you threatening him?
No.
You say that you think that he should be brought to an end.
I think, no, I said he deserves to stand trial to the American people. Some paraphrase, I guess. But
I think you use the word end.
That's what I mean by end. I mean, by end, I don't mean like a civil war, if that is the imagery that you're trying to imagine.
Lou says he built this cross after carrying wooden slats from his near West Side apartment to Grant Park last Tuesday afternoon. He showed the red ball cap that he put on the top beam and used lighter fluid and toilet paper to get it all going.
I put a red hat to signify the MAGA hat, the Make America Great Again hat. So that was... yeah, that's what I tied on top.
But that's not visible in the one video that was taken by a motorist.
Lou says he was protesting what he calls MAGA Christian nationalist supporters and the Trump administration ruling class.
You're just scamming people. We're just scamming out of money, right? And I think that's a great reflection of how this country works right now.
Now, you have to ask yourself, if this guy hadn't been caught on a security cam, would he actually have come forward and said, hey, it was me, gay Asian socialist, who set this, and it was supposed to be a statement about MAGA? Do you think he would have come forward, or do you think he would have allowed the black community in Chicago to believe that this was, in fact, an act that was committed by a white nationalist? You know, one of the reasons that we know ultimately that it wasn't a white nationalist, well, first of all, the SPLC is no longer able to pay people to do these things. But secondly, nobody lights a cross on fire in the middle of a Chicago park, okay? Like, that's just shit that doesn't happen. Give me things that would never happen for 1,000 Alex, okay? And I knew immediately that this must have been some type of a ruse. This was some type of localized false flag psyop operation. And here we go. We have the full confirmation that that is exactly what happened. Now, will anything happen to this man? Probably not, because he's a gay Asian socialist. But if it actually had been a white person or a Trump supporter, you can bet that they would be charged with a hate crime. You can bet that they ultimately would have been rounded up. They would have had their entire life turned inside out. But nothing will happen to this guy. And of course, he will be heralded as some type of brave savior of the gay Asian socialist movement, which, to be frank, I didn't know that even existed. But here it is. All right. Now, we have to talk about the situation with Iran. It is really interesting because in the last 24 hours, President Trump and the opinion of him in the sort of general normie public has swung 180 degrees. During the course of this conflict in the Middle East with Iran, President Trump, by many people who previously supported him, was called a shill for Israel, a lapdog of Bibi, someone who had abandoned America first. And now, as a result of finally making peace with Iran, which ultimately was the only thing that he ever said that he wanted, he has now become a shill for the Middle East. He is now anti-Zionist. He is now no longer a friend to Israel. It's hilarious because you've got these two people, these two groups of people on opposing sides of the argument. And I don't know what the people who said he was a shill for Israel are saying now, but I do know the people who thought that they could control Trump, the Zionists and Bibi and all of them, they are now freaking out because they believe that Trump has totally abandoned them. What both sides, in my opinion, have been missing from the very beginning is that Trump is not a shill for anyone. He's not a shill for Israel. He's not a shill for the Middle East. President Trump is and always has been America first. And what these two sides fail to recognize is that sometimes what they are neglecting to admit to themselves is that President Trump has always been making decisions based upon what is ultimately going to be best for the United States of America. And what's best for the United States of America and her people is if war is no longer hanging over the heads of us, and if the military-industrial complex gets their nuts clipped, and if the warmongering peoples and nations of the world no longer have an excuse to continue killing people. Because when people start killing people, there are certain elements within the United States that will gladly send American sons and daughters over to those foreign lands to die on the behalf of someone else or in the interest of putting money in their pockets. Now, take a look at this. A former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. suggests that Israel most likely lost the war with Iran, admitting that none of their major objectives were achieved. Well, this was always about American objectives. This was never about Israeli objectives. And the people who thought Trump was a shill for Israel didn't realize this. And the people who thought Trump was a shill for them didn't realize it either.
And that was all crucial goals for Israel's national security. Right now, none of those goals have been achieved. And so there's a somber move in Israel tonight. We're not participating in the celebrations just yet. I'm sure it'd be very interesting to see what is actually in this agreement and not just what's being reported by various media outlets around the region and around the world. But there's great concern here that Iran, at the end of the day, will remain in control of the Strait of Hormuz, if not accepting tolls, will receive frozen assets from the United States, maybe sanctions relief that will enable Iran to rebuild its military and strategic capabilities, continue supporting terror, continuing building ballistic missiles, and still the question of what's the future of the nuclear program and the nuclear stockpile will remain unanswered. That's a
Wait, are people suggesting that I doxed someone? Because I didn't. I don't know what's going on in the chat, but I haven't doxed anybody.
Lot to say right there, Sandra, but that is the concern in Israel tonight. Okay. And that was all crucial.
All right, so the concern in Israel is that they have lost the control that they believed that they had over the situation. Now, President Trump, of course, announced this peace deal It was a peace deal that was put in place by the United States with the assistance of certain Muslim nations and certain Gulf nations, but without the assistance of Israel because they didn't want peace. And very shortly after that, we get this announcement. Yesterday, 8 crew members on an American B-52 bomber crashed. Now, oh, no, yeah. Okay, yeah, please. I know Hassan Piker's address is public, but we don't really need to spread it around. I mean, like, that guy has his own problems with the Department of Justice and FinCEN and the Treasury Department, so we don't need to accelerate it or anything like that. Because people have put my address out there before, and I'll tell you what, it's not a comfortable feeling. Anyways, so what's notable about the B-52 bomber is that it took off from Edwards Air Force Base yesterday, and it was carrying 8 people. It was just a routine test mission, and it crashed very shortly after takeoff at 11:20 a.m. This is a nuclear-capable bomber that would have the ability to drop a nuclear weapon. Now, of course, we're not going to be dropping nuclear weapons, but that peace through strength that we've talked about on many occasions is only achievable through our military superiority. When this first happened, I thought, well, that's a little strange. There was recently another U.S. military plane crash. I believe it took place in Washington over the weekend. Feel free to correct me. I don't have the information in front of me. But there was a fighter pilot that went down in a wooded area. I believe that pilot and his co-pilot were okay. Really unfortunate that all 8 people on this B-52 were killed in this crash. Now, they don't know what caused it. But I just want you to keep in mind the timeline. Now, the airfield is completely closed, may be open by now, but I think they're probably still doing an investigation. All non-commercial and visitor passes have been suspended until further notice. They need to determine exactly why this went down. What else happened yesterday was a Russian bomber also went down. So 2 nations, United States and Russia, who are both trying to significantly change the sophisticated global order, the global criminal cabal that's been in place for our entire lives. Russia in the east, United States in the west, 2 nations that the deep state have tried to keep at odds and keep separated, both lost nuclear-capable air devices in the exact same day. So the Russian Tu-22M3 backfire suddenly after takeoff went into a steep dive and then crashed during a training fight. Now, those 4 pilots were able to eject, and all of them survived. But as I said, the crew of the B-52 did not survive. Here is the footage of the Russian bomber going down, and you can see it looks like it just about fell out of the sky. No, I don't think that these are traitors taken out. I think, to be perfectly honest, that this may be in response to the fact that Israel and others were shut out of this peace deal. Now, President Trump directly rebuked Israel today during meetings at the G7 with nations that are not even part of the G7. These are some nations that helped with this Iran peace deal. But yesterday, President Trump was quoted as being very angry with Bibi for striking Lebanon and nearly derailing the peace process that we have tried so diligently to bring about. President Trump went on record and said that Bibi needs to stop with the continuing hostilities because it is making peace negotiations difficult. And Trump was asked if the newly signed memorandum of understanding could survive if Israel attacked Lebanon and Beirut on a continuing basis. And he said it can. I consider that the minor war. Iran's a big one, but we have that little pinprick out there that constantly rears its head, and that's Hezbollah. He blasted Israel for fighting Hezbollah for too long, but most importantly, he called them out for killing civilians and for their indiscriminate attacks on apartment buildings. Now, President Trump made quite a few interesting statements during the course of this interaction here. And I have a 6-minute clip, but I think that we'll just go through a couple of the shorter clips, and I will read to you President Trump's selected statements here. He said, Israel's fighting Hezbollah for too long. Too many people are being killed. You don't have to knock down an apartment building every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and many of them are Christians in that area of Lebanon where Israel is continuing to bomb, and they're not all Hezbollah, Trump says. That I can tell you. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah because, to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of it. Now, he further went on to condemn Israel's most recent attack on Beirut as U.S. and Iranian officials were in the midst of trying to make this peace deal. He said, I didn't like it, where 2 hours before we're signing the agreement, that there was this attack on Lebanon in Beirut. It wasn't like that on the southern side. And, you know, it was in Beirut. I did not like that. I let him know that. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. If Israel can't do the job without killing everyone else, Syria will do the job. And then he was asked if he was frustrated with Netanyahu. Now, Trump has been a master in terms of riding the line with Bibi. I think that the people who think Trump is a shill for Israel neglect to remind themselves that Israel had a hand in the assassination of JFK. Of course, that was a different government, but that same government also had a hand in stealing enriched uranium from the United States, with which they used that uranium to create nuclear weapons. Israel has the Samson option. The Samson option is they're pushing the button and killing everyone else if they feel that they're in jeopardy. And, of course, they have people embedded everywhere. And this means that Trump has to be extremely cautious about whom he trusts, about who he talks to, about the statements that he makes. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with the idea of keeping your friends close and your enemies closer. President Trump does that with everyone because he has to, because there are certainly times where it was beneficial to make Bibi and the IDF feel comfortable about the direction things were going, until now he's very clearly comfortable with making it known to be exactly how it is. He is being very honest about this. Israel can't just keep indiscriminately killing people. President Trump is trying to bring peace to the Middle East, and that means that everyone, including Israel, is going to have to be good neighbors. They're going to have to be stewards of this new international order that President Trump has sought to create. He said that Trump and Bibi have maintained a great relationship, but again, he references Beirut, and he says, I saw that attack. I saw where the bomb went. Did you see what happened? That was a vicious attack. That was too much, you know. You can do too much also. But he continued and said, without the United States, there would be no Israel. He said, I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a great country. It was a country where you had professors, doctors, lawyers. The great intellect was in Lebanon. Now it's just terrible. And then he went on to lambaste Obama and the disastrous original Iran deal. He said, if it weren't for the United States of America with me, because Obama was the opposite, Israel would not exist right now. Israel would have been blown off the face of the earth 100%, and every smart person in Israel knows that, which is why they want to be our #1 ally. But at the same time, they also want access to our intelligence. Now, take a listen here to President Trump speaking about the targeting of civilians in Lebanon, because make no mistake, they know exactly what they're doing, and this is intentional.
Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long, and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it. And I didn't like Syria. I didn't like where 2 hours before we're signing the agreement, that there was an attack in Lebanon, in Beirut. It wasn't like in the southern side, and it was in Beirut. I did not like that. I let them know that. I didn't like it, not at all. But I think that Syria, he's pulled that country together amazingly quickly. He's very capable, and he's been very good for me. He's protected everything that I've asked for. He's done. And if Israel can't do the job without killing everyone else, he'll do the job. Syria will do the job.
All right. Now, I also need to say thank you to Jim Kyle, because I didn't see this, but over the weekend, he had donated on Ko-Fi a $100 donation. He said, "Love your reporting, Zach." Jim, thank you so much. I hope you're out there, buddy. I really appreciate you. All right. Now, also, President Trump here, you know what? I'm sorry. This is a duplicate of the last clip that I just played, so I don't need to play that. All right. So here, President Trump responds to the severity of that Lebanon attack and essentially says that this was a complete disparity. There was no need to do what they did. And as I have stated before, it's my opinion that Israel attacks Lebanon because they know that that is going to derail the peace deal. And luckily, they were able to get to the point in the negotiation where it became obvious that the peace deal must be signed so that Iran could go to some type of normalcy under a different stack of leadership, which, of course, is going to be good for the people of Iran. And, of course, this will lead ultimately to a containment of such for Israel. Now, the reason I think that, here, let me continue with this before I go into the B-52 again.
Are you frustrated with Netanyahu, sir?
No. We had a great relationship. We're talking about some end details. I didn't like that he did an attack based on there's a very minor little thing with some drones that were released, and he ends up doing I saw that attack. I saw where that bomb went. Did you see what happened? That was a vicious, that was too much. You can do too much also. But we've had a very effective relationship. Without us, without the United States, there would be no Israel. Without me, there would be no Israel, because no other president was willing to do what I did. I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a great country. It was a country where you had professors, doctors, lawyers. The great intellect was in Lebanon. Now it's terrible. I would say of all countries, they've been treated the worst. And they can't defend themselves. And they have Hezbollah, which is a problem for them. So, no, I'm not happy with the way Israel has handled themselves with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. They should have been able to do the job faster. It just goes on forever. And when that happens, it throws a negative light on the big deal, and that's the deal with Iran.
So the truth of the matter is that obviously they don't really want to win the war. They want to exterminate the competition. And that's why it goes on and on and on, because they're trying to push all of the people out of southern Lebanon. They want to access and essentially take over that territory. And the only way that that can reasonably happen is if there's no people there. But President Trump is now throwing a monkey wrench in that. And to be frank, he's been doing that the entire time. Now, I see people in the chat saying you're worried for President Trump's safety. President Trump is aware of everything that I'm saying, in my opinion. He is well aware of the danger of the situation, and I think that plays into a very large degree the reason that he has carried himself this entire time. But the ruse can only go so far. You know, it's like if you don't want the bear to eat you, you better make sure the bear is eating something else. All right, you keep the bear fat and happy so that you can back away and then shoot it when it's got its head in the cooler, okay? And I think that that's exactly what President Trump is doing right now. Continuing here, President Trump again says that Israel would not exist if it wasn't for him and for the United States. What he's telling Israel here is that you need to understand the nature of this relationship, because all of the Israel lobby on X and out there on all of these news programs, they are incredulous. They are extremely upset with President Trump and saying, like, oh, so now we're the bad guys, like now you're going to make peace with Iran. You can't do that. We're the only people that you can have peace with. And they're very offended by President Trump building all of these bridges with all of these other nations in the Middle East. Israel wants to be the top dog. If you go back and look at statements that have been made between Trump and Bibi in the past, President Trump has said, Israel's basically like the little brother. We're the top dog. And Bibi has come back and basically said, no, that's actually not what I believe. And I know that there is no fondness for Bibi among the people who are frustrated with the situation. But I also want everybody to recognize that what comes after Bibi is going to be a lot worse. They will be much more hardline, and it will be a completely different development in terms of the type of diplomacy that President Trump in the United States needs to engage in.
But you wouldn't have, if it weren't for the United States of America, with me, because Obama was the opposite, Israel would not exist right now. Israel would have been blown off the face of the earth, 100%. And every smart person in Israel knows that. Okay.
Now that President Trump has created this environment for peace, and he has brought together all of these nations, as I said yesterday, once the redevelopment begins in Iran, with the Gulf nations carrying that financial investment, we already have security agreements with all of these nations. And it means that Israel is simply not going to be able to unilaterally come in and start attacking people, because then an attack on those nations, like NATO, it will be considered an attack that the United States needs to respond to. So the relationship is very tenuous. This next clip is really interesting because President Trump said multiple times that Israel would not exist if it weren't for the United States. And I think that that is true. I mean, you look at the amount of money that we've given Israel over the years, $4 billion a year. I don't care if it's Israel or a Central American country. Any country that can only survive on the welfare payments from the United States, I think they've got a serious problem, and they need to reevaluate how they're doing things. We should not be responsible for paying for anything for any country and them just expecting it to come in. I think that this changing relationship, the need for the relationship to change publicly, is a large part of the reason why Bibi said that we are going to decouple ourselves from U.S. foreign money, from that aid coming into the country of Israel. Because, of course, that aid comes with strings. It comes with guarantees, at least publicly, of how they're going to behave. And now Israel is being isolated inside the Middle East. And this is one of the reasons why you have people coming after Bibi who hope to depose him and, get him out. He's probably not going to be in power much longer. Those people are much, much more hardline. Now, President Trump said Israel wouldn't exist without the U.S. The U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, went on stage and said the exact opposite, that the U.S. wouldn't exist without Israel. Let me just say, first of all, that 250 years ago, Israel, as it exists today, did not exist anywhere in the world. And there was nobody from the Jewish World Congress or from, the Jewish Foundation, who was present among the founding fathers. So I take great issue with this comment.
This is just another reminder that it is your heritage, without a doubt. But, Minister, it is also the heritage of the United States. Without Israel, without the Jewish Foundation, there would not be an America. We owe our very existence to what happened in this land.
I don't exactly know how he is rationalizing it, other than to say that Mike Huckabee is an avowed Zionist, and he believes in he is a true believer in the fact that that the Israel as it exists today is indistinguishable from the Israel of the Bible, And, of course, he is just like Ted Cruz in that respect. Now, here, an Israeli politician, diplomat, and he's not a politician. He's a diplomatic correspondent for an Israeli news agency. Another reason that we know that that this deal is about America and not about Israel is that he can confirm that Israel formally requested access to the Iranian Memorandum of Understanding, and they were denied. Of course, he and many of these other Zionists on X are very upset about that. A remarkable and highly unusual development between close allies on an issue of such critical national security importance. Again, this is a deal brokered by the United States of America for the goals of the United States of America and not for any other country. We didn't give anybody access to this, and Israel shouldn't feel entitled to anything. This is also now why I believe Congress is trying to intrinsically tie the intelligence aspects of Israel, the IDF, and the American-Israeli military in a binding deal that will be impossible to unwind if not for the action of Congress. So I believe that if that does end up getting passed, this would be something that President Trump would veto once it got to his desk. Now, just to give a little basis, even though we haven't seen the Memorandum of Understanding, President Trump says that they're going to read it out on Friday. Some of the details have gotten out, which one of the major details is that the U.S. is now going to allow Iran to immediately begin selling oil and fuel under the deal. The stock market has shot to heights never before seen once again. Oil, again, is dropping like a stone. I believe it's getting close to $70 a barrel now, whereas yesterday it was at or above 80. But the details include, number one, the provision for waivers of sanctions on oil sales. That takes effect immediately as soon as they sign this deal on Friday. Number two, it also covers necessary services, including banking, transportation, and insurance, which is needed to facilitate the sales of oil. And then number three, Iran is expected to receive upfront sanctions relief under the deal, with further relief tied to Iran's performance. And again, oil is dropping sharply as a result. Now, this further reinforces the fact that there is no U.S. taxpayer money that is going to be given to Iran to either rebuild or to get their oil industry back up off the ground. Immediately as they're able to sell to global customers, and because sanctions relief will be in place, they'll be able to sell to anybody. They will, of course, be able to sell a hell of a lot of oil. And believe me, there is a lot of appetite for oil and gas and all of the products that come along with it right now. Here is just a brief clip with Peter Doocy speaking about this after speaking with the White House.
President Trump, he is very rich. Will, you know, you're talking about how we still have so much to learn about this Memorandum of Understanding. Today, a big thing is we learned why the Iranians are eager to sign on to this thing. Turns out, according to the Wall Street Journal, Iran is soon going to be able to start selling oil again on the global marketplace. As soon as they sign this thing on Friday, they can start selling, and that is their main moneymaker.
Now, if you look at the peace deals that President Trump has negotiated in every single area of the world where there were previously conflicts, what comes along with each and every one of them is deals for trade, for commerce, for economic cooperation going back and forth. What President Trump has done and what he continues to do is to make it more profitable for everyone to do business with each other, more profitable than the business of killing each other. And that is what truly sets him apart. And this is what so many armchair diplomats and news aficionados on the internet fail to realize. Now, just one more piece about the current situation with our relationship with Israel. The Israeli National Security Minister, a man named Itamar Ben-Gvir, someone who is very, very hardline, wants to kill everybody in the Middle East that isn't Israeli, and wants to exceed all of those lands around them as part of the Greater Israel Project. He has just canceled a planned family trip to the United States following difficulties in securing an entry visa. Israeli media is reporting that this minister was scheduled to travel to Miami to attend the wedding of an Israeli businessman's daughter, but the U.S. Embassy informed Ben-Gvir that he would be required to appear in person at the U.S. Embassy in Israel to provide biometric fingerprints, which local media is interpreting as a diplomatic maneuver to either deny or delay his entry. So rather than giving his fingerprints, rather than going on record just as, you know, any controversial individual who is not an American citizen entering the country would have to do, he has canceled his trip. Now, there was also some controversy about this trip because he was apparently seeking to have the man whose wedding he was attending actually fund the trip for he and his family. Now, at the end of the day, he had finally agreed to cover the costs personally, but it was only after criticism from the Israeli public and the Israeli government and intervention from the state comptroller over potential ethical violations. This is a very, very clear indication that the United States is interpreting all people who are not American around the world as the exact same level of trustworthiness, which is, you know, not much. All right. And especially in the interest of United States security, we know that the Israelis are very aggressive about their spying operations, about their counter-intel operations. And Ben-Gvir, of course, as an Israeli, it's his right to be Israel first. He sees Israel as the power dynamic in this relationship. But sometimes people need to be reminded, especially when they think they're more powerful than the United States of America. President Trump, as I have said previously, the deal maker of deal makers. President Trump is the discombobulator in chief. President Trump has single-handedly pushed Israel into a corner. Now, if they want to go to war with Lebanon or Iran or anybody else in the region, they're going to be doing it alone. Also, as a result of this memorandum of understanding being signed, the United States has already started pulling their refueling airplanes out of Ben Gurion Airport. There were stealth bomber air refueling airplanes that were positioned there so that if we did have to go a long distance anywhere in the region, we could do that. Pulling those out means that the United States is firmly committed to not needing to use any air support for any type of a war or anything to that effect. Now, I have another clip here, last one on this subject, but John Podhertz, the guy that we heard yesterday saying that he was just so upset about the Americans making peace with Iran, he is now lamenting what appears to be President Trump turning his back on Israel.
Trump is now saying Bibi is indiscriminately murdering Lebanese, but
which he did.
The Iranians are nice.
Yes, President Trump was complimentary to the Iranians. He said that the government that is currently in power, which is basically like the third set of politicos since the conflict began, said they're intelligent, they're peaceable, they're very nice, and they're also interested in creating a lasting peace and doing what is best for the people of Iran.
And they only want to help their country?
Look at this guy on the left. He's so upset. I mean, all of them are upset.
The people who just tried to shoot down and kill 2 of our pilots last week.
All right. Now, that is in regard to the Apache that went down. Another thing that people like this, these talking heads who claim to be America first, but truly at the end of the day are actually Israel first. They look at Iran as a monolith, as if there's no difference between the Iranian government and the IRGC and the people of Iran. You've got multiple buckets of people within a nation, just as you do here in the United States and just as you do in Israel or any country around the world. They have competing viewpoints. They have competing objectives. They have different ideologies. They have different beliefs. And you have, as we have already seen on a number of occasions, some holdovers that were within the IRGC that were acting unilaterally without any chain of command and were doing things that were also stifling the peace process. Now, the United States, we made short work of them. By ridding Iran of those people, it allowed for those intelligent, peace-loving, and forward-thinking Iranians who were eventually able to rise up within the power structure to take over their government to make this peace deal. And it just, it disgusts me anytime people will use a sort of blanket terminology to discuss an entire people. You know, the deep state that used to be in charge of the United States and that, to a large degree is still battling for power in various areas of the world, that was not the people of the United States. The Muslims that are killing Brits and running rape gangs then are also within the UK government. Those are not the people of the UK. These are completely different buckets. And the idea that, one individual controlling a drone is the same as every single person in Iran, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and of course, who tried to assassinate him?
Yeah.
Tried to assassinate John Bolton?
Those people are more likely dead than not.
Tried to.
What's going on?
What's going on?
I'm telling you what's going on. What's going on is something happened and he decided that he went the wrong way and he is ratcheting himself in the other direction.
Or perhaps President Trump always intended for it to go in this direction. President Trump kept Bibi at arm's length right here, making him feel comfortable, allowing him to believe that American objectives were indistinguishable from Israeli objectives. And President Trump, as I've said before, he's not running for office anymore. He doesn't need to play the PR game, whether it's with the leader of another nation or even voters here in the United States of America. I always said, ultimately, people would be shown the truth of what President Trump's plans are with regards to Iran. They thought that they controlled him. And now that President Trump is showing at least a portion of his hand to show that actually what we're doing in Iran is about America and not about any other nation, they are absolutely freaking out.
And it's almost as though when he was without restraint in the rhetoric that he was using,
which they loved, by the way, because people and, the people who criticized Trump, they couldn't get it through their heads that maybe that rhetoric was only that rhetoric. People tend to take Trump like directly at his word without seeing the nuance or without having any sort of comprehension of the way he makes deals. And the people who do that are always proven wrong at the end of the day.
Militaristic rhetoric he was using. I only want unconditional surrender. I'm going to bomb your civilization.
Peace through strength. As I've said on many different occasions, peace through strength only works if the people you are trying to exert your power over, the places where you are trying to project that power, if they believe that your strength actually has muscle behind it. An army that will never be used is an army that nobody will take seriously. A military that will never have the opportunity to prove its worth is a military that people will perceive as a paper tiger. And President Trump in the United States of America, we are not paper tigers.
Once he turns tail, suddenly Iran's nice, Qatar is brave, another thing that he said today, and you will always be my friend, and you were so brave and so wonderful in these talks. And
he was speaking to the Emir of Qatar, or I don't know what their leader is, but whoever's the guy running Qatar, because Qatar has promised a significant amount of investment here in the United States. It's already begun. They just added another $1 trillion to that total. Also, they're the ones who largely are going to be driving the rebuilding of Iran.
Israel is the bad guy. So, which is where he's going. Like this is the opening this weekend. He went from Bibi is what the F are you doing? And you're without judgment. And now you're blowing up apartment buildings in Beirut, and the Iranians are really nice.
Well, the Iranians aren't blowing up people's apartment buildings indiscriminately. And if Israel wants to keep warring against any of these countries, they will be doing it alone. They will be doing it alone, but even more importantly, they will be doing it against the United States of America, because we have made peace with all of these other nations. Now, I thought it would be important to hear from Iranians, because there are people out there who have said that Trump he's got egg on his face because he's not doing a full regime change in Iran, because he's not going in and making sure that the Ayatollah is dead, or completely forcing the ultimate culling of the IRGC. All of President Trump's stated goals have not been met, and it makes him look weak. I don't think so at all. Okay, just again, refer back to all of my prior statements. President Trump makes public statements, and that doesn't mean at all times that you can follow that like a straight line. But a woman by the name of Maryam Rajavi, she's the president-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. So this is a group of people who are Iranian and who are fighting ultimately for the freedom of the Iranian people against the Islamic Republican government, with the IRGC. Okay, so yesterday, she welcomed the emerging U.S.-Iran understanding aimed at ending hostilities, while asserting that peace poses a greater threat to the survival of the Islamic Republic than military confrontation. So, in the same way that I've said that war between Iran and Israel is good for Israel, it's also good for the Ayatollahs and the IRGC, because both of these groups, which have a intense hatred of each other, are free to remain constantly at a position of wartime posture. It also gives Israel the power to, make these broad declarations of being in a war. They can take people's rights away. They can force certain things on their people. The same is true in Iran. The IRGC and the Ayatollahs, the brutal takedowns of protests. This is one of the things that President Trump had pointed out on many occasions. It would be these people from the National Council of Resistance of Iran that would be among those being killed and being silenced. Rajavi said that the NCRI supports the efforts to end the conflict and alleviate the suffering of the Iranian people. The Iranian resistance, she says, which fought nearly 5 decades, has sought freedom and peace, and has, through 133 revelations in the past 35 years, acted as the most important barrier in preventing the ruling theocracy from acquiring the bomb, welcomes an understanding to end the war and the suffering of the Iranian people. Once peace comes to Iran, and they sign this memorandum of understanding and are welcomed into the international community, which includes investment and, of course, continuing oversight by the United States, but not in the sense that we will be occupying them, but through the sense that we will have, for the first time since the Iranian Revolution, we will have normalized diplomatic relations. It will mean that the United States is likely going to have their embassy back in Tehran. It means that we will be in a regular communication with each other. When people are talking, people aren't afraid of each other, and they're not getting ready to kill each other, which is then sort of like trickle-down economics, going to be a sort of trickle-down benefit to the people of Iran, because there will be no specter of war. They don't have to worry about bombs coming in. They don't have to stand up there and grandstand about the great Satan of the United States. The United States is now an ally in the Middle East rather than being an adversary. In Iran, no one expects the remnants of the mullahs, and the Shah has wanted or wants war, she said. These remarks come in the wake of this announcement of this memorandum of understanding. It's going to establish a 60-day framework for continuing negotiations over Tehran's nuclear program, while paving the way for the reopening of the Straits of Hormuz, which has already begun, by the way. The naval blockade is over. They said that today they were going to be sweeping for mines, but thousands of ships have already passed through. They've confirmed that. And the signing ceremony will be Friday in Switzerland. She said the regime's pursuit of nuclear weapons, which is now over as a result of this MOU, their support for terrorist proxies, which is now also over as a result of the signing of this MOU, and efforts to destabilize the Middle East, which is also now over as a result of this MOU, are central pillars of the strategy for preserving clerical rule. When the radicalized Iranian government no longer is able to continue to engage in this type of behavior, everything changes. Everything changes not only for the Iranian people, but it changes for the nations that border Iran and who are constantly nervous about these very things. The effort to produce nuclear weapons, warmongering, and meddling in the countries of the region are part of the survival strategy of the religious fascism ruling Iran, and it will not abandon them as long as it can. She said peace and de-escalation threaten the regime by weakening one of its most effective tools for suppressing dissent and deflecting attention from mounting domestic unrest. War is the regime's shield against popular uprisings, while peace and a ceasefire, as Khamenei himself put it, are like poison for it. The overthrow of the regime is the responsibility of the Iranian people and their organized resistance. She also urged that any future agreement with Tehran must address the regime's ongoing human rights abuses, which I'm certain that it will because President Trump has publicly talked about this on many occasions. I reiterate once again that any international agreement to end the war must include an end to the execution of political prisoners and the killing of protesters. I wouldn't be surprised if, as a result of this signing on Friday, we will start to see prisoners being let go. Now, of course, many people are concerned about the memorandum and whether or not Iran can be trusted. But it's not like the United States is some Johnny-come-lately to the intel game. We have presence, I would imagine, in every single nation bordering Iran, if not presence itself inside of Iran. We also have the ability to spy on them through satellites and every other method of electronic surveillance that you can imagine. President Trump at that press conference was asked if he's worried about Iran hiding uranium. And he said, no, we've got so many freaking satellites staring at them, watching the locations, which we know, of the uranium right now. If anybody touches it, then we're absolutely going to be aware of it. And that's not going to happen. So peace in the Middle East, it's happening. And there's just one nation left that we have to worry about not allowing peace in the Middle East. All right. Before we continue, guys, if I can say thank you very much to Boys Blanc 89 for the cookie on Pilled. Thank you to Trump One for the cookie over on Pilled. And thank you to No Thanks Joe for the can on Pilled. Happy Taco Tuesday, Lisa and Zach. Thanks for all your work. God bless and be safe, both of you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Also, Lee Walden over on Rumble says, there were reports that the emergency 911 was also shut down around our nation, and the Faye, after Trump support for Gaza, the Key Bridge in Baltimore, and 9/11 went down. Okay. I need to decode what you're saying here. So you're talking about a historical statement that President Trump made about the people in Gaza, but I don't understand the Key Bridge. Are you saying that 911 went down during those two specific instances? As I said, the people that we're talking about, they've got agents and operatives all over the place. So every single move that is being made is likely being watched, and attempts to subvert the peace process are also likely being attempted as well. All right, you guys, if you wouldn't mind, please do me a favor and hit that like button. That would be really awesome. And let's go ahead and say a big thank you to the next sponsor of the program. All right, you guys. So I want to put you guys onto something, and it's pretty sweet. If you've ever noticed how a guy might drop like $2,000 on a rifle, but then for some reason they will bolt on the cheapest sight they possibly can. It's like driving a Ferrari with bicycle tires. But here's the part that nobody says out loud. You also don't need a $1,000 optic to shoot well. Most people are never going to have to do that. But this is why I like the Stinger combat sight from MCG Tactical. I'm going to be straight with you. This is not the most expensive optic that you're going to find on the shelf, but it's not pretending to be either. It does the things that you actually need it to do, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. It's quick to get on target. It gives you a clean sight picture. and it's dead simple to run. Easy peasy. You bring it up, you're on, you send it for range days, home defense, or training around your action range. It just works. And just after enough rounds behind one, this is really what you're asking for at the end of the day. Get a couple through, check it out for yourself. You see exactly how good it is. This is where it gets really good, though, because the premium names sit up around maybe $600, up over $600 even. The Stinger, however, it's built to serious standards. It's priced way more reasonably. And right now, for the viewers of my show, MCG Tactical is stacking another 67% off, and they're also even going to give you free shipping on top of that. That's not too good to be true. It's just honest, and it's a fair site at a genuinely fair price. It's the kind of deal that makes you feel a little smug for catching it, because you're not going to notice. You're going to only feel the difference in your wallet. So you can scan that code on screen, or you can click the link or go directly to mcgtech.com/redpill. Now, they move quick when the price drops, so if it's in stock, that's your green light. You're not overpaying. You're not undergunned. You're just getting a solid optic for the money. So it's pretty easy. Thank you very much for being here with us, and thank you very much to MCG Tactical for supporting the program. Okay, now let us jump back into... Oh, shoot. Why did that go away? Hold on just a second. Why did my Foxhole chat go away? Huh. Well, let me see. Refresh the cache and see if that works. I don't know. Well, I don't know if you guys are watching, but if you can tell me maybe what happened there with why that is no longer on screen, that would be awesome. All right, you guys. So this is one of the most insane takes that I've ever seen. When you guys saw the Claw, when you saw the UFC fight over the weekend for the 250th, when President Trump celebrated his birthday with the UFC, and all of those guys on stage, a variety of different skin shades and tones. You had people from all over the place there, and it wasn't like a Ku Klux Klan rally or anything. But Heather Cox Richardson, she's a historian that just did an interview with former CNN anchor Jim Acosta, and she tried to equate the UFC fight to the historical act of lynching black people. Now, I guess last month she actually claimed that Republicans accuse other people of doing what they are doing, which is hilarious to me, because I think we all know that the other side are masters of projection. And she also suggested that the GOP has learned their tactic from the Nazis. That's also hilarious, because I would say if you're going to be pointing at any fascists in the United States, trying to completely subvert your rights, destroy the republic, take as much power as they possibly can, and rewrite all the rules, I think you know exactly who's doing that. So basically, she's completely insane. And she suggests that this UFC fight is essentially the same as lynching. Let's go ahead and listen.
What you are watching Trump do right now is deliberately tear that apart. And he is doing so on the same cultural argument, of course, that people used to back the first Gilded Age. That is, these culture wars that turn white Americans against marginalized people of color.
Right.
That's the bottom line there. So, I mean, it's not really a stretch to say that the same impulse that created the UFC fight on the White House lawn is the impulse that really pushed lynching in the late 19th century against black Americans.
How did this have anything to do with lynching? It makes absolutely zero sense. And it's not like the UFC is only for white people. There are plenty of people with brown skin, yellow skin, all different types of people who enjoy the UFC. Lee Walden, okay, so B-52 crash and 911 shut down Gaza support, followed by Key Bridge and 911 shutdown. Okay, wait a second. Okay, so so you're saying that when President Trump mentioned support for Gaza, the Key Bridge happened. I don't know. I don't know if I would connect those two. But I mean, certainly I believe that the B-52 crash could directly be connected to what we've seen over the last couple of days. But thank you very much for clarifying. Principal Enigma said is that they want to talk about Nazis. Maybe they need to be reminded that George Soros was an SS operative wearing the SS uniform. Yes, George Soros is the only person in modern politics who went around to the homes of Jews and took their personal possessions. Pretty insane that they would try to suggest that. All right, now, the rhetoric of the left, I believe, yesterday came home to roost in the most horrific of senses. And, you know, hold on. Let me, since the real one is, oh, wait a second. Now it's working? Okay, it looks like it's working now. Cool. They have consistently said that President Trump was best friends with Epstein, that, you know, he was hanging out with him. They've published fake AI images. They've taken Epstein's emails out of context, you know, where he mentions Donald Trump, but then leave out the ones where he talks about how much he hated him. And that has caused a brainworm, a disease amongst the general public, people who don't do the research to the level that needs to be done, and they will uncritically listen to the bad takes of people who simply hate Donald Trump, hate America, and hate anybody who supports him. So U.S. officials thwarted a massive terror attack that was supposed to take place at the UFC Freedom 250 event held on Sunday. And the event had an estimated 4,300 attendees, and there were roughly 1,200 active duty service members. So now we learn that potentially thousands of people could have died if not for the quick actions of federal law enforcement. And let me say, from the start of this tip coming in to the actual arrests, this was very, very fast. So the FBI and other law enforcement partners, which included the Secret Service, disrupted this alleged plot that was meant to take place over the weekend. Right now, we've got 5 people in custody. Arrests are continuing to take place, so we could have even more people in custody now. But investigators have identified at least 23 people that are part of this potential network of domestic terrorists. So the plan that they were putting together would have used explosive drones. Those drones would have been flown at buildings near the event to cause explosions, and then it would force a mass evacuation of the people at the UFC Freedom event. And they, of course, have disaster plans where if people need to exit this area, Secret Service and security would funnel them through a particular area. Now, they also plan to have snipers at those points so that they could begin killing people as they were running away from the claw itself. Certainly, if they were going to be flying explosive drones, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that they would use those drones to also perhaps hit the claw and the arena itself. And then they had a second wave of attacks where they planned to storm the White House. God, this is almost like Antifa fan fiction, the way that it went down. So the FBI learned about this plot on June 10th, just a couple of days ago, and then they worked with law enforcement to get it shut down. And the suspects were using Signal to speak about their plans. They thought because it was Signal that their chats were encrypted and that they wouldn't have to worry about the government listening in. There was a certain group of them that planned to travel to Fredericksburg, Virginia on either June 12th or June 13th, which is where they would prepare for the attack. And then they would come into D.C. proper and stage to make the attack on Sunday night. So these 5 people, we don't know much about all of them, but we do know some about several of them. It's been reported, besides the 23 that are still out there, that means that we've got 18 people yet to be arrested. One of these suspects revealed the targets of the attack to investigators. Those attacks were capitalist elites, billionaires, and politicians who received money from AIPAC. Now, Kash Patel wrote a statement and said, thanks to the rapid action of this FBI, our partners, and the Department of Justice in a multi-state operation, Multiple individuals are now in custody, and allegedly planned attacks were stopped cold. While the result represented the best of investigative work, it was also nothing out of the ordinary for this law enforcement team. We are built to detect, respond to, and bring to justice those who threaten the lives of American citizens, particularly during large gatherings like the historic UFC 250 fight, and that's exactly what we did here. I want to thank our great agents and partners. This work remains ongoing, and we will continue to update the public as permitted. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance pointed his finger at the left, as I did when we opened up this segment. He said, this is what happens when people turn the rhetoric up so loud that disagreeing with somebody is a cause for violence. We got to tell everybody to tone it down. Everybody has a role to cut this stuff out, he said. But I think a lot of my Democratic colleagues in Washington have got to look themselves in the mirror and say, why is so much of this political violence coming from our side of the spectrum? I would argue that since President Trump came back into power, and even before when he was running for the second term, the third term, all of this violence was coming from the left. If it's not coming from the left, it's coming from an alien or a migrant. They need to wonder, why is so much of it coming from their side? Well, that's because, again, they are saddled with a terminal disease, Trump derangement syndrome, and they do not like the United States of America. They like what the United States of America provides for them, but they believe that if they had the power, then, of course, they would be able to do it better. Now, take a look at this. This is one of the men who was arrested, Tyson Proper. Lisa, he's an Ohio boy. He apparently planned to use explosive drones to target these buildings, and then he would be one of the snipers. Now, I believe it was actually his mother who called the FBI. Here we have a report from a local news outlet in Cincinnati. This 19-year-old, I can't believe he's 19, first of all. A 19-year-old man is among the multiple suspects under arrest for taking part in this planned attack for Sunday. Agents with the Cincinnati division arrested Tyson Proper of Knox County last week. Others were arrested in California and Missouri. And Proper is held without bond in the Franklin County Jail on 4 felony charges that could send him to prison for decades, if not the rest of his life. Number 1, conspiracy to commit an offense against the United States, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Attempted murder of a federal official, which carries a maximum prison sentence of 20 years. Possession of a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence. This charge has a mandatory minimum of 5 years and a maximum of life in prison. And receipt or transfer of a firearm that will be used to commit a felony, which is punishable by up to 15 years in prison. Now, he was actually, again, it was his mother who called in this threat notice on Wednesday, the 10th of last week, and they very quickly moved in to arrest him. Then a multi-state operation across at least a dozen FBI field offices began, and they were able to successfully stop any of the attack from taking place. The Secret Service apparently worked around the clock to identify suspects and hold them accountable, as it was said by Director Sean Curran. Investigators uncovered the encrypted signal chats. This is how they identified the 23 people talking about using these explosive drones to blow things up and then snipe people as they were being evacuated. An FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force officer filed a detailed affidavit in support of the criminal charges against Proper. The Knox County Sheriff's Office responded to a call from his mother reporting concerns about her son's recent behavior. She was worried because of the firearms purchases and his communications with people online. This is how you know his family are leftists, because she was worried about a firearms purchase. I mean, he's an adult. He should be able to buy firearms, but obviously don't be buying firearms if you're going to commit acts of terrorism. Now, Proper's father reported his son had been planning recons with people he met online and was prepared to leave to meet them over the weekend on Saturday, June 13th and Sunday, June 14th. Proper also was rapidly gathering gear and weapons, spending about $3,000 in graduation money on camping supplies, ballistic plates, a new shotgun, a rifle, and lots of ammunition and magazines. Now, his parents voluntarily turned over all the equipment. It included boxes of ammunition, estimated by law enforcement to be thousands of rounds. Not so unusual. I've got thousands of rounds of ammunition, but obviously this guy was trying to commit an act of terror, and gave the plate carriers and the AR and a bullpup rifle that was painted like an American flag to authorities. Proper was taken to a hospital after authorities sought emergency admission based on homicidal ideations. And the next day, the Knox County Sheriff's Office are the ones who actually contacted the FBI to make sure that they were taking action on all of this that was happening. Now, in these court documents, I wasn't able to get the full affidavit, but the court documents show screenshots from the signal chat, and they also show some of those things that were seized from Tyson proper. The California man that was arrested is a guy by the name of Michael Allen Thomas. He was said to be one of the organizers of this terror plot. Feds say that he admitted he believes the U.S. government is run by elites based, I mean, he's not wrong, who sacrifice and eat children and had involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, and they are now protected by President Trump. This seems to be also something that Mr. Proper believed as well, that President Trump was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein and that he was protecting Epstein, and this was one of the reasons why it was necessary to kill innocent civilians in Washington, D.C. after maybe blowing them up with drones. This is peak TDS right here. Investigators took screenshots of his signal chats in which details of the plot were discussed, and maps of the USC event were shown with suggestions on where snipers should be placed. They also recovered all the rifle and ammos, and we can see here in the affidavit these screenshots. It includes maps, locations around D.C., of course, people in the chat being tagged, and then files that are being sent, and potentially people attempting to delete messages after the FBI had gotten receipt of all of this stuff. Here's the bullpup that he had painted with the American flag, and then here is his bulletproof vest with, you know, plates in it and everything. All right, so soon as we get more information about specific individuals who are being arrested, we will definitely bring that to you as well. Now, President Trump, obviously being at the G7, he had not been made aware of this until it was announced, and he was asked about it while he was sitting there with the emirate or the president of Qatar. And I just need to get past
this $60 invention is making $300 pressure washers obsolete because it doesn't use a single drop of electricity, just pure.
Mr. President, were you?
Okay. So this is President Trump learning about the attack for the first time, he says.
Mr. President, were you briefed on the attack plans for the UFC event at the White House? There was the FBI ordered an attack.
I haven't heard about it, no. But I watched the attack that I watched with the fighters. And he saw it too, by the way. He was sitting back home in his beautiful palace and he was watching that. And they were as good a fights as I've ever seen. Right? The best fight. The best. They were. That last fight was brutal. Wow. And the two last, all of the fights. Two fights. It was all good.
President Trump has such an easygoing demeanor. Here he is learning for the first time that there was a foiled terror attack that was planned for his birthday, and he just immediately launches into cracking jokes. This is, in my opinion, an excellent indication of how comfortable President Trump is with the direction of the plan that he has in place to fix America, continue to put America first, and bring peace to the rest of the world, which means that the United States will be the greatest nation in the most peaceful planet in the universe. And get past this.
Fox News alert, the FBI revealing that they thwarted an alleged plot targeting this past weekend's UFC Freedom 250 event at the White House.
Unbelievable. Another one. Ty Pyro joins us with the details. Good morning, Ty.
Good morning. This breaking news just into the Fox newsroom. The FBI disrupting this alleged plot targeting the UFC Freedom 250 event at the White House. Officials telling Fox a network of nearly 24 potential plotters were identified, with at least 5 people in custody right now.
I just want to see if they give the names or identities of any of the other 3 people who were arrested.
Now, the suspects allegedly traveled to Fredericksburg, Virginia to make final preparations for the attack. And the alleged plan allegedly included explosive-packed drones hitting buildings near the event.
Well, TNTD, just because these retards were planning an attack doesn't mean that they actually had the sophistication or the capability to do it. These people have not been identified as prior to this being on the radar of the FBI. If you look at prior busts that have taken place, foiled terror attacks, there's always some benefit to it. And immediately Congress or the government sees how they can use it to begin stripping away your rights. We're not going to see that here. But the one thing that I can tell you is that this goes directly in line with the pattern of leftist violence that we've seen all around the country ever since President Trump came back into power. It also says nothing about potential support that they may have had from anyone else. Considering the fact that we haven't had identities given for any of these other 21 people who are being sought or who may have been arrested by this point, we don't know their identities. We don't know what their skill level was. We don't know what their connections were. This is all very preliminary. So, continuing, we also have an announcement coming out of Minnesota. The feds have charged 15 Antifa members for their interference with immigration officers, going back to the ICE operations that were taking place in Minnesota when Renee Nicole Good and Mr. Pretty were shot. Pretty good shots. So, press conference this morning with U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosen said that the group allegedly associated with an Antifa offshoot called Direct Action Minnesota have been formally charged with conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer, solicitation to commit a crime of violence, interstate threats, interstate stalking, assault on a federal officer, and destruction of government property. Direct Action Minnesota is recognized for its large-scale, quote, grassroots and labor movement, which also opposed federal immigration enforcement during Operation Metro Surge. Be assured, U.S. Attorney Dan Rosen said, the Department of Justice and my U.S. Attorney's Office has and will distinguish between lawful protest and criminal conduct. These defendants have been charged not for what they said, but for what they did. Rosen went on to accuse the defendants of a conspiracy to interfere with law enforcement operations with force, calling their alleged actions obstructive, disruptive, and unlawful. A list of defendants as charged in the federal indictment include these 15 people. Now, I don't know any of these people except for Kyle Wagner. Kyle Wagner was a guy who was arrested previously and was also known as Antifa Kyle. He was actually called out specifically during the press conference. We'll watch some of that in a moment. But the indictment showed 12 of the accused are scheduled for their first court appearance today at 2 p.m., so it's already taken place, while 2 of them remain at large. They are still being sought. And another had already been in custody on other federal charges. I believe that may be Antifa Kyle. Following Rosen's remarks, HSI Special Agent in Charge Michael McCarthy said the group's alleged acts were designed to create chaos, disrupt operations, and threaten the safety of officers and community. Let me be clear, peaceful protest is a protected right and a cornerstone of our democracy. We respect and defend that right. However, there's a clear line that cannot be crossed when protests turn into rioting, violence, or criminal activity. It becomes unlawful, and it will not be tolerated. While vowing to hold those charged accountable, Rosen spoke vaguely about the status of possible investigations into the officers accused of shooting and killing Renee Nicole Good and Alex Pretty. These investigations are ongoing. They are ongoing in the way that proper federal enforcement investigations ought to proceed, he said. They will proceed to their completion, and they'll proceed to their completion in the proper pace at the proper time. In response to Tuesday's announcement, civil rights attorney and activist Nikema Levy-Armstrong led a separate round of remarks asking the community to stand up for those accused in the indictment as well as others facing similar charges. They put their necks on the line, they put their bodies on the line, they put their jobs on the line to stand up for freedom, justice, and equality. None of those things are true. We need to be standing up for them, and we need to be standing up for the hundreds of other people that are still facing state and federal charges against fascism and authoritarianism. Now, you also may remember Miss Levy Armstrong because she was the organizer of the raid on that church in Minnesota. She is currently under federal indictment for her role in that as well. Well, here, let me just go straight to the press conference as well. So this morning, Homeland Security Investigations conducted a coordinated law enforcement operation culminating in the arrest of those 12 out of 15 defendants. One defendant was in custody. The other one is on the run. Now, this, in case you don't remember, is Antifa Kyle. He was famous during these events taking place in Minnesota because he was a large driver of the social media attention that was going on. And, of course, he made direct threats to ICE and federal agents.
My name is Kyle. I'm Antifa, and there's so much rage in me that I've had to record this like 15 times trying to get the message out. They fucked up, okay? Go watch my other videos. Doesn't matter if you're not here and you're not caught up. You missed the fucking fight. But if you are, it's time to suit up. Boots on the ground. Nicollet and fucking 26th. My house is 4 blocks away. Anywhere between Franklin and Nicollet and 26th and Nicollet. Show up, ready to go. Okay, not talking about peaceful protests anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore. I am talking specifically to my fucking followers. This is everything I have fucking talked about, and this is exactly what I said was going to happen. This is exactly what I said was going to fucking come when we didn't fucking go and march on fucking Whipple with guns. So
he done effed up, boy. He has directly called for violence and something that is quite honestly not peaceful protest. Now, here is Dan Rosen commenting on Kyle's comments.
Today, a federal indictment was unsealed, charging 15 defendants with conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers and other charges related to efforts of 2 Minneapolis-based Antifa groups that violently opposed the enforcement of federal law in our state.
Now, with regard to the events of Washington, D.C., just juxtaposing it next to the events that took place during the ICE operations in Minnesota and these charges now taking place, these people may appear to just be clueless losers, spewing hatred and calling for violence on social media. But again, I think that people dramatically underestimate not only the amount of money that's behind these people through the nonprofit industrial complex, but also the organizational acumen and the level of skill sets behind these people. They may be ideologically retarded. They may be misguided, but there's a reason these people can afford to be paid protesters, because they are true believers ideologically in the communist takedown of the United States and in their hatred for ICE and federal officers and for anybody who doesn't agree with them. So I think that what we're going to find is that there will likely be some connections to those people in that signal chat. I don't think it's just random people all across the country. And what we're going to find here is that this particular offshoot of Antifa has a lot of money, has a lot of organization, and has a lot of connections behind it, which is going to lead us to additional charges and additional defendants.
The defendants are members and associates of Direct Action Minnesota. They are charged with conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer, solicitation to commit a crime of violence, interstate threats, interstate stalking, assault on a federal officer, and destruction of government property.
And here is Kyle once again putting his foot in his mouth. Of course, I would imagine a large part of the charges against him are going to be pulled directly from his own social media posts.
Earlier this morning,
actually, let me jump ahead here. Oh, no, I guess no. It's just Dan talking for the next 10 minutes. So we don't need to hear that. But I would like to show you one of these HSI raids that took place this morning. This is one of the defendants, Isaac Alman Sant, who was arrested after he was indicted for being part of this violent conspiracy to attack federal agents in the Twin Cities. He's a secret contributor to the Antifa terror collective CrimeThink. Now, CrimeThink is different from Direct Action Minnesota, but they are still members of Antifa, and they are still just as well funded and perhaps even more militaristic and set on actually destroying the United States of America, and they have no problem killing people. Think about the other acts of leftist violence that took place around the country since President Trump has come back in. I mean, they had a group of them in Texas, you guys, who tried to literally pull an Alamo on an ICE facility, okay? They shot an agent in the neck. They tried to freaking raid it and take it over. Now, of course, they, like I said, just because they try doesn't mean they have the skill set or the ability to do it. But all it requires is the actions to be put into words and pen to paper for the conspiracy to take hold, and then they go ahead and they try it. So here you can see him. You can see him on his porch.
612-444-2654.
Is your dog okay?
Not my dog.
Not your dog. Okay.
What's your name?
My name's Isaac Sant.
Isaac Sant.
First name's I-S-A-A-C. Last name S-A-N-T.
I got you.
My lawyer is Kevin Rich. I very much like that you could call him.
We'll do it.
Rich is spelled R-I-C-H.
612-444-2654. Nazis.
Fucking pig.
Shame on you. Nazis. Fucking Nazis.
Anyways, and you can see there is a sizable group of people around them who are sympathetic to Isaac's arrest, and they would have no problem being part of the exact same group of people, and likely are part of that same group of people. Now, shortly before I went live, O'Keefe Media Group and Cam Higbee released a report on the Antifa groups that are behind the New Jersey ICE protests that have been waging for the last month or so. And they embedded themselves with Antifa, and what they discovered is that this is not just a group of disaffected ideological miscreants who dislike the government. Sure, you've got the Antifa Black Bloc and the paid protesters, but you've also got people in significant positions of power and authority who are very well off and who are very well connected, who are also identified as members of Antifa. We're talking about people like Alyssa P. at the New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault Community Council. She's a member of that. Jim Keedy, who is a former New Jersey Democratic candidate. Woojin Ko, who is a researcher and an engineer at OpenAI. Belakekam Mufuk, who is a T-Mobile AI automation expert. Zanab Tanvir, who is an imaging director at Rutgers University. Amanda Marie Dominguez, also at Rutgers University. She's a PhD student in education. Aditi Rao, who's a Princeton University classics professor. Shannon Smythe, who is a Princeton Theological Seminary field education director. Cress Vellucci, part of the National Lawyers Guild and the co-founder and co-member of that organization, and he's on the ACLU Board of Directors. And Celine Saman, who is a co-founder of Slow Factory Labs. Again, these are not the people that you're going to see on the streets. These are the people who are going to be organizing and taking part of the back-end aspects of Antifa. The people that you see on the streets are only a very small portion of this highly organized group of revolutionaries. That is the only way that I can put it.
An
OMG journalist went undercover inside Antifa at the height of the New Jersey shipment port blockades and discovered that members of Antifa have infiltrated almost every industry, from AI engineering, university administration, T-Mobile, to the United Nations, lawyers' guilds, and nonprofit boards of directors. We use their secret internal group chats to identify the members, highlight their most egregious statements, and track down where they work. And the positions of power that some of them hold genuinely shocked us. These people are everywhere.
Okay, excuse me. Let's see. Principled Enigma, I read that. Frey and the Boys says it is not insane. What if the shoe was on the other foot? They were rounding us up, had killed a lot of us. What would you be willing to do? What would you be willing to do to protect your child? I don't know what you're referring to specifically there. Frey and the Boys says these people through the media and echo chambers think that this is where they are. Okay, so you're saying that they believe that their lives are truly in danger. Well, I still think it's insane because their lives are not in danger. They are being told that by the media. They are truly under the belief that President Trump is a fascist. So in that respect, I definitely understand that they are willing to do things that we would think, you know, are totally insane. But I still believe that the foundations of their viewpoint are crazy and disconnected from reality. Principled Enigma says, I believe the smart criminals have for a long time been watching idiots screw up. They are taking notes. The worst is yet ahead. After the amount of crime will go down. So yes, I think that there are many, many, many people out there who have not yet exposed themselves, who have not yet been caught. And of course, there are different levels of criminality that need to be addressed. But I think ultimately the lesson here is that this movement of insanity is potentially a lot larger than I think people really give it credit for. I mean, you go back to the videos that we were getting from Cam and from Nick Sorter during all of these protests, and just looking at the amount of supplies that these people were getting delivered to them on a daily basis. Sure, they had people donating on Venmo and stuff like that, but we know that there is money coming in from these nonprofit organizations, and we know that there is a tremendous pipeline of support that these people have. It's not just that money, but it's people in positions of power who never reveal themselves until they're caught with their pants down like this.
More specifically, the journalist infiltrated an Antifa cell called NJ Byrne. Recently, at Delaney Hall, the illegal immigration detention center in New Jersey, Antifa made headlines by rioting and attacking journalists and law enforcement. NJ Byrne was one of the groups on the ground. I was personally on the ground at Delaney Hall. I was forced to deploy mace in self-defense and had to retreat into Delaney Hall for my own safety. The violence at Delaney Hall has been brutal and unending. Also, NJ Byrne has been making headlines for shutting down major shipment ports, such as Elizabethport in New Jersey.
Now, as I've said before, because this has taken place, because the New Jersey authorities have abdicated all responsibility to keep the hall safe and, of course, to keep these people in line, it has created the argument to make it necessary for President Trump and the federal government to come in with some type of grander gesture, whether it is declaring the Insurrection Act or simply deploying troops on the streets. I personally think it needs to happen. And I think that it is even more evident as we discover just how widespread and organized these people are. We've already had Antifa itself declared as a domestic and an international terror group, but there are so many splinter cells like NJ Byrne that exist, which, of course, I've never heard of. Think about how many others out there have yet to be identified.
Shut down the entrance to the Port of Elizabeth. Port of Elizabeth is one of the most significant ports in the world.
Thanks to the journalists' infiltration of their...
Jim, thank you again for that Ko-Fi donation. He says they should be disappeared. Too bad the white hats don't have the balls. Well, I think that it needs to be done in a lawful way, not simply just renditioning people.
Signal chat groups, O'Keefe Media has been able to review these chats. And within them, they discuss plans for future port blockades and violent protests, celebrations of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and wishes that Trump's assassin had succeeded. Using names and profile pictures from these chats, we were able to track down a few of the members. For example, using the account's profile picture and name, Lex, we were able to match her to a LinkedIn profile for Alexis P. She is a council member of something called the New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Lex gleefully expresses that she is a, quote, menace to the white side of her family, laments the fact that minorities have expressed condolences for Charlie Kirk, and expresses how much she, quote, fucking hates centrists and conservatives. When a person with this much anger, hatred, and racism in their hearts is a council member at the New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault, how are white women, or conservative women, or centrist women for that matter, supposed to feel comfortable or safe going to the NJCASA for help? You would
Well, and you can imagine that any women of those particular descriptors would likely have visited this organization seeking assistance, seeking help, and it's not outside of the realm of possibility that perhaps they were treated very, very poorly and even abused further by a woman like this.
I think radical chats like this would mostly consist of students and activists, but what we found was much more alarming. These people are everywhere.
We cook your meals, we haul your trash, we connect your calls, we drive your ambulances.
To quote Fight Club, they program your AI, they run your cell phone service, they are execs in medical companies, they are congressional candidates, university administrators, defense attorneys, and perhaps more predictably, ACLU board members. In a chat planning the Elizabeth, New Jersey port blockade, we found Jim Keaty, who served as city councilman in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and also ran for the 4th Congressional District of New Jersey, although he was not successful. Just imagine if our government was infiltrated with Antifa sympathizers.
And on that note, it's just being revealed that Graham Plattner, the man running for the Democratic Senate seat in Maine against Susan Collins, was the leader of a left-wing commie, I guess, a militia group, basically. He was using his military training to train these disaffected young ideological retards to engage in the exact type of behavior that we're seeing be taken down right now.
Antifa is an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia.
Just imagine. Wu Jin Ko was subscribed to the Jackie Support Antifa group chat, which is dedicated to providing support for Jackie McRae, who firebombed 10 NYPD vehicles in 2026. They/she had their Instagram profile linked, which had a matching profile picture to the LinkedIn account. And they're an engineer at OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT. So you can only imagine the radical agendas that they/she is programming into ChatGPT responses. Yet another participant with strong authority over the programming of AI technologies is
Yes, Plattner is the Nazi, the Adam Waffen Nazi tattoo chest guy.
Belkacem Melfok, who works as an AI automation leader and expert for T-Mobile. Out of all of the people we found in these chats, 3 of them work in high-up positions in leading AI companies. These are the people that will be programming and engineering AI technologies long into the future as they become a more and more prevalent aspect of social programming. Turning our attention to Rutgers University, Zainab Tanvir is an imaging director and assistant professor at Rutgers, New Brunswick. So if you're
And how many of these people do you think are either visa holders, naturalized citizens, people who have come to the United States of America with the express intention of destroying the United States of America?
Your children go to Rutgers, just know that the administration that oversees them is also sympathetic, if not complicit, to the Antifa agenda. One such example, in the same Elizabeth Port blockade chat, we found Amanda Dominguez, who is a PhD student at Rutgers and an organizer and coordinator at a workers' rights activist organization called New Labor. On New Labor's mission page, it states that they fight to empower workers and clean up dangerous safety conditions. We are not exactly sure how creating human blockades against truckers trying to do their jobs is empowering them or improving safety conditions, but this apparently meets New Labor's standards of employment. Also, in the chat planning the Elizabethport blockade, we found a D.T. Rao, who is a doctoral candidate in Princeton's Department of Classics. We can't help but wonder what's going on at Princeton if their doctoral candidates and members of the Department of Classics are engaging in chats celebrating assassinations and plotting to shut down major American shipment ports. Also, in Princeton, New Jersey, at Princeton Theological Seminary, a Presbyterian private school, we found Reverend Shannon Smythe, who serves as the school's director of field education. We couldn't help but wonder if families that are spending over $20,000 a year to send their children to Princeton Theological Seminary were aware that members of the faculty were supportive of Antifa's agenda and disruptive tactics. Cress Volushi was found to have access to NJ Burns' Google Drive, where they upload photos, videos, and even a media kit in preparation for the port blockade on October 3rd. Perhaps quite predictably, Cress Volushi is a board member of the ACLU and a board member and co-founder of the National Lawyers Guild. The ACLU is notorious for defending Antifa rioters in court, so it doesn't come as a major surprise that their board members would be actively participating in their disruptions.
Excellent argument to be made that the ACLU should definitely be looked into, investigated, their sources of funding be questioned, and I would ultimately hope that their 501c3 status could be pulled as a result of their support for noted terrorist organizations such as this, and for those members of those terrorist organizations to be board members on the very organization that is supposed to be fighting for civil liberties. What a joke.
Example, in 2017, the ACLU of Oregon notoriously filed a class action lawsuit against the city of Portland on behalf of members of the Rose City Antifa, citing excessive force by police. There's also Celine Simon. Her profile picture featured a poster stating "Everything is political," which was also referenced in her LinkedIn. She is the co-founder of Study Hall Foundation, which is apparently hosted by the United Nations every year for an annual summit. It's probably not even surprising to many of you that the United Nations would give annual summits to companies founded by Antifa members, especially considering the UN infamously tweeted about their, quote, profound concern over a recent statement by the US Attorney General describing Antifa and other anti-fascist activists as domestic terrorists, saying it undermines the rights to freedom of expression and of peaceful assembly.
Speak in the language that they understand, and sometimes that is violence.
Peaceful assembly. Unsurprisingly, we found Thomas Whitehead, who is a PhD doctorate student at Cornell, until he was arrested for assaulting a police officer with a flagpole. When so many aspects of American society are infiltrated by these radical agitators, everyday life can become compromised by their violent agenda. This isn't just an isolated issue. Antifa participants are systematically invading our justice system, our AI technology industries, our university administration, and their students' minds. There is so much work to be done on this issue, and we're calling on the US government to track down these detractors.
All right, now, I will end it there. There's only a couple of minutes left, but I would suggest everybody obviously go ahead and watch this again after today. James O'Keefe says that for the last 8 months, they've had someone undercover in New Jersey Antifa infiltrating these signal chats and getting the information that Cam Higbee just presented. What we uncovered proves Antifa is not just an idea. It's a network of real people organizing, coordinating, and operating inside America. And of course, this entire network has been discussing plans for the port blockades, the riots that we see, support networks for criminal defendants. They've celebrated the acts of political violence. They've got the names, the profile photos, the digital receipts, and of course, all of that is being handed over to the authorities in the United States government. And I would imagine that they will also be contacting the employers of these members of Antifa to see if they are comfortable having these people on their staff. They are not simply anonymous individuals organizing online. They have identified numerous individuals and organizations connected to members of the New Jersey Burn Network and they have also been reached out to for comment. At this time, nobody has replied to them as well. But the identities referenced in this report are based on actual evidence gathered during the investigation, including their social media activity, public records, and other corroborating information. Some identities yet remain unknown, and additional information is likely to emerge after this publication. James goes on and continues to drop the screenshots and the social pages of the various people that they identified in this report. And I just want to say this is great work. Very, very good. I would be surprised if the information they've gathered here does not lead to additional indictments in the future. All right, now, continuing on the subject of indictments, we do have a more detailed look at the likely criminal investigation of Gavin Newsom and his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom. Now, as we have reported previously, the former chief of staff of Gavin Newsom recently pled guilty. Dana Williamson pled guilty to 3 separate felonies pertaining to campaign finance fraud, federal tax evasion, and more. Now, that news must have been a blow to Gavin Newsom because, of course, with her previous position of his chief of staff, Dana Williamson, for years, would have been privy to the ins and outs of the Newsom administration and what are likely the criminal actions of Gavin and his wife, Jennifer. And at the time that she pled guilty, Gavin Newsom said, "We've all got to be held to the letter of the law." Well, that was in May. By June, federal agents were knocking on the doors of Newsom's own friends and family associates, and the tune that Gavin Newsom was singing changed considerably. We watched the announcement that Gavin Newsom published on X yesterday, where he accused President Trump and the Department of Justice of weaponizing the Department of Justice against him simply because President Trump doesn't like him. However, the investigation at a federal level into Jennifer Siebel Newsom's taxes and Gavin Newsom's own circle of associates is not politically motivated. In fact, it began under the Biden administration and just kicked up into higher gear once President Trump came into office. This is not about kneecapping Gavin Newsom and making it impossible for him to run for president in 2028. It's not about Donald Trump coming after Gavin Newsom for mean tweets. It's about Gavin Newsom and his wife's crimes, the full scope of what is now multiple federal investigations remains unclear, but of course we can put together some of the pieces. Now, according to the governor's office, former employees and associates of both Gavin and his wife Jennifer, including documentary filmmaker, she is a documentary filmmaker and California's first wife, they have all been questioned by agents in recent weeks. And that would likely be because evidence has already been put together from public statements, from the actual money that's been flowing, perhaps even communications that were gathered under a subpoena that Gavin Newsom and his wife would not be privy to yet. But banking records have certainly been subpoenaed, and they have no idea exactly how much evidence or information the federal government has yet. However, a person familiar with this matter did confirm this week that definitely 100% multiple federal investigations are underway, and that includes investigations into the Siebel Newsom's finances. Now, this is a major thorn in the side of Gavin Newsom's central claim, saying that these probes were initiated by federal law enforcement in California. They were not, in fact, directed by the Trump administration coming out of Washington. This was entirely an investigation that began with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI in Sacramento. This federal probe that led to Williamson's guilty plea, again, also began under the Biden administration. So far, we don't have any comment from the FBI or the Department of Justice, but the White House has referred all questions to be answered by the DOJ at a time at which they are ready. At the center of at least some of the federal scrutiny is the nonprofit organizations that are connected to the governor and his wife. Years ago, Jennifer Siebel Newsom founded something called the Representation Project. This is that nonprofit that advocates for gender equity through documentary filmmaking. The financial arrangements surrounding that organization have led people to question exactly what's been going on for years. Now, there is a book called Fool's Gold, which was co-written by the reporter writing this at the Real Clear Politics. Now, Siebel Newsom's Representation Project nonprofit paid her a total of $1.5 million in salary between 2013 and 2021, and then they funneled another $1.6 million since 2012 to her private production company. It's called Girls Club Entertainment. That included $161,250 in 2024 alone. Now, the book, Fool's Gold, reveals that several corporations with contracts or businesses pending before the state government of California provided 5- and 6-figure donations to the charity during Gavin Newsom's time as governor. That has the appearance of a quid pro quo relationship. If Gavin Newsom didn't have a wife with a funnel for money to be entered into, perhaps that money would be going to Gavin Newsom's private winery or businesses that were more directly connected to him. But the films themselves produced by this organization have also generated controversy. It appears that Miss Siebel Newsom produces documentaries and has screened them at least 5,000 public schools in all 50 states, and her organization has apparently positioned itself to collect licensing fees for these screenings. Undoubtedly, because they're being shown at public schools, the school districts themselves must be the ones that are paying for these licensing fees. They have released a total of 4 films. First, Misrepresentation. Second, The Mask You Live In. Third, The Great American Lie. And fourth, Fair Play. Now, each of these productions are packaged with an accompanying classroom curricula. Some of the curriculum advises teachers and administrators that students may need to speak with a school counselor after viewing the films and completing the assignments, which discuss subjects such as social privilege, oppression, and gender equality. Now, the accompanying material that comes with the films also includes what critics have described as overt political advocacy, which you might expect coming from the first wife of California. They feature commentary actually from Governor Gavin Newsom himself, pressing student and the viewers of these films to organize with friends and vote for politicians supporting what he calls a care economy. That would be one that embraces universal human values, and critics have described these as basically campaign ads. Certainly, they were played in California, just as they were in all 49 other states. Now, several of the films also warn teachers to have counselors on hand to manage the reactions of students. Conservative parents have claimed and complained that some of the content in the films, which is intended for 15-year-olds, includes images of women being physically brutalized, and their sources are coming from adult websites. So essentially, Jennifer Siebel Newsom is promoting and creating documentary films intended for children, for teenagers, which includes pornographic images. And it's totally inappropriate whether they are middle schoolers or high schoolers, and it's even more inappropriate because the children have no say in whether or not they watch these films. They are assigned by the teachers that are showing them to them. The curriculum for the film The Mask You Live In also promotes non-binary gender identity through materials including gender-bred person, charting gender expression, sexual attraction, and gender identity as independently sliding spectrums. Now, Siebel Newsom is also a co-founder of the California Partners Project. That's another nonprofit that's focused on women in corporate leadership and online child safety. That accounts for costs among donor groups with active businesses also before the state government. Gavin Newsom himself has reported soliciting money to be donated to the California Partners Project. That includes $4.3 million in donation since 2020, including $1.8 million from the Federated Indians of Gretton Rancheria. That's the Native American tribe operating a state-licensed casino in Sonoma County. And the tribe unsuccessfully fought a smaller tribe's ability to launch its own casino during the Biden administration. Gavin Newsom actually intervened on behalf of the Federated Indians of Gretton Rancheria to try to stop that casino from being built. So the money they gave to him and his wife ended up doing little good. California law requires public officials to disclose so-called behested payments. These are donations made to charities that are solicited in their name. This is what we spoke about yesterday. It's a little-known loophole that Gavin Newsom seems to have taken advantage of more than any other politician in American history. There's another organization, the California Protocol Foundation. They've got a board stacked with people who are loyal to Gavin Newsom from his time as both San Francisco mayor and as governor of California, and it covers expenses the governor says he doesn't want taxpayers to fund, which includes domestic travel and overseas travel. Now, the nonprofit arrangements have drawn scrutiny not only from federal investigators, but also journalists who have tracked the financial relationships the Newsoms have developed over the years. Among the most striking examples, which is detailed in Fool's Gold, involves Pacific Gas and Electric, the Northern California utility giant that has long been one of the state's most prolific donors to politicians of both parties, whether Democrat or Republican. And they hold ignominious distinction of being responsible for the deadliest fires in state history. PG&E is also famously the a utility company that Aaron Brockovich went up against when they were dumping hexavalent chromium into the groundwater of a suburban neighborhood that was being drunk by the children and the adults living there. And, of course, cancer clusters developed. PG&E's relationship with the Newsoms goes considerably beyond political giving. The utility donated to Miss Siebel Newsom's film projects so generously that it's listed in the credits of 2 of her documentaries as being an associate producer. PG&E also screened one of those films in the atrium of their corporate San Francisco skyscraper back in 2011. That was when Gavin Newsom was lieutenant governor. And over the decades, both Newsom and his wife have accepted a combined $700,000 in donations from PG&E. That includes $208,400 in campaign contributions from employees of PG&E during his first gubernatorial campaign alone. And the PG&E Corporation Foundation, which is a separate nonprofit, donated $10,000 to the Plump Jack Foundation. That's a charity named after Newsom and Billy Guettery's winery group and led by the governor's sister, whose name is Hillary Newsom. The scrutiny also follows directly on the heels of the Williamson prosecution, Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, a case that the governor's office says has fully cleared Newsom of any wrongdoing. But just because he hasn't been indicted yet doesn't mean that he's been cleared of any wrongdoing. Williamson pled guilty last month to that conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit bank fraud, filing a false tax return, and lying to federal investigators. By many accounts, Williamson was one of the most powerful unelected people in Sacramento. She was also a veteran of the Jerry Brown administration, and he was also extremely powerful in California politics. He was feared in Democratic circles, and he was an operator whom Rivals has described, and not charitably, as running the Capitol like a mafia boss. She came to Gavin Newsom's office in January 2023 as chief of staff, already carrying a reputation for getting things done and an appetite for the levers of power that came with the job. Well, only 23 months later, Miss Williamson was gone. She quietly resigned in December of 2024 amid the burgeoning federal corruption investigation that few in Sacramento's tight-knit political world had even seen coming. When you run a government like a mafia, you tend to believe that you are untouchable. Miss Williamson undoubtedly believed that she was. Now, you may also remember I've spoken about this particular investigation for the last several years because the $225,000 that Miss Williamson drained from a dormant campaign account belonged to Xavier Becerra, who is currently running as the Democratic candidate for governor in California. He was also the former Secretary of Health and Human Services for Joe Biden, and the campaign that the money was taken from was also managed and organized by Miss Williamson. So she seems to be deeply connected to the seat of power in California. And of course, when Xavier Becerra went to Washington, D.C., he took others with him, and Miss Williamson was helpful in making sure that those people Xavier Becerra took with him would be able to be paid extra money. She's also accused of padding her own bottom line, claiming $1.7 million in bogus business deductions so that she could cover luxury goods, vacations, and other personal expenses. And although the trial judge will have the final say under sentencing guidelines, she faces about 3 years in prison. Now, if she does turn state's witness against Gavin Newsom, of course, that ultimate sentence is still up for debate. But she and her co-conspirators must repay the $225,000 to Becerra's campaign, and she also owes approximately $500,000 in restitution to the IRS. Now, Becerra, much like Newsom, has not yet been charged with any wrongdoing, and he compared her actions as a betrayal, something to discovering an unfaithful spouse. He says that it was a gut punch. But federal prosecutors have charged her with lying to the FBI about confidential state litigation information that she passed on to a former business partner. Now, she does have a plea agreement, and her plea agreement does not name the client that she gave this information to, but details closely match a 2021 sex discrimination lawsuit California regulators filed against a video game giant, Activision Blizzard. That was a one-time client of Williamson's consulting firm. And in 2022, Gavin Newsom fired the state attorney that was leading the lawsuit, which seemed to draw conclusions of interference in the case. When Williamson was first indicted back in November of last year, her attorney revealed that federal agents had approached her during the Biden administration seeking cooperation in this investigation into the governor himself. Now, she declined to take part in that investigation. She said she never witnessed any criminal conduct by Gavin Newsom. But why would she admit to witnessing any criminal conduct by Gavin Newsom when she knew damn well that she herself was engaged in a fair amount of criminal conduct as well? Now, it resumed this investigation right around the time that Trump announced he had planned to nominate Todd Blanche as Attorney General. Blanche, who had previously defended Trump in 3 of his 4 criminal cases and recently signed an agreement granting the president immunity from tax audits, is, of course, now the acting Attorney General, soon to be the actual Attorney General. Now, as of right now, of course, Gavin Newsom has not been he hasn't been indicted of any crimes. He hasn't necessarily been accused of any crimes. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And where there's an investigation that is good enough for the Biden administration, you ought to know that there is enough smoke there that it's definitely good enough for the Trump administration. So again, this is not about selling the presidency. This is not about getting revenge against Gavin Newsom. This is about an active criminal investigation. If they are subpoenaing his records, if they are looking into his wife, then again, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a reason why they are looking at them. Now, Miss Siebel Newsom also made a comment. She said, "This is not presidential behavior, and the governor and I will continue to speak truth to power because the American people deserve so much more." And of course, just hours after sending out that announcement on X we watched yesterday, Gavin Newsom sent a fundraising email asking supporters to help him pay his legal fees to fight this political witch hunt. His office simultaneously also filed a public records request with the Justice Department demanding all documents that reference Gavin Newsom. So we have yet to see exactly what this investigation is going to dig up. But I tend to believe that Gavin Newsom is in a fair amount of criminal jeopardy right now. And the announcement that he made yesterday goes to show exactly that. There are so many different trails leading from money, Gavin Newsom, power, and influence that if there is something there, we are definitely going to find out about it. All right. Now, let me say thank you very much to One Thunder for the 214 gold pills. Thank you to Darla over on Pilled, who says, "Hey, Zach and Lisa, I just got a notification that Michael Obama has responded to the comments from the UFC fighter. Anything." I haven't seen that yet, but let me see if I can find something. Michelle Obama statement. Nothing from yesterday. I'm not seeing anything right now, but that doesn't mean... Oh, Michelle Obama speaks out. This is... Okay, so the tweet that someone posted appears to have been deleted, so it might have been fake news. I'm certain that if a statement is made, I will find out about it, and I will definitely tell you guys. All right, so I wanted to take a look at a couple of different things, touching on race relations, as we have tended to do recently, because it's a subject that is impossible to ignore. Yet another teen takeover took place at the Hyde Park Trader Joe's in Chicago, and present for that was Christian Maxwell. She's a Chicago resident running for Congress in Illinois' Congressional District 1. And she posted her reaction and some actual live footage from the event. She said, "I was just caught in a teen takeover at the Hyde Park Trader Joe's, and it's still going on at this moment. Multiple fights, swarms of kids in Hyde Park, unacceptable, dangerous. Chicago residents should not have to wonder if a routine grocery shop will turn into chaos. Teen takeovers are not harmless. They put families, seniors, workers, shoppers, drivers, and young people themselves at risk. Mayor Brandon Johnson, Governor Pritzker, and local aldermen can no longer treat this like a public relations problem." Let me go ahead and play you the video, and you can see what went down.
Well, I unfortunately just got caught in a teen takeover at the Hyde Park Trader Joe's.
Hyde Park right now. This is not acceptable.
Your entire teen takeover outside. Oh my God. I got back from the office and decided to pop into Trader Joe's so I could get some dinner and snacks for my kids. When I arrived there were a few units from UCPD, and then there were some teens walking around. And I was like, you know what? They seem like they're leaving. I'm going to go ahead and run into the store. I didn't leave any of my belongings in my car, and I took my kids into the store with me. While we were in the store, the entire store is swarmed with hundreds of teens. And these are not cheerful looking teens. I love our people, but we have to be so for real about what is happening in Chicago right now.
And it's not just happening in Chicago. To be frank, it's happening all across the United States to varying degrees. But in a lawless location like Chicago, where the administration of both the city and the state of Illinois have no desire to stop this or even to acknowledge that it happens, it happens in a much more prevalent way. And you clearly have what appears to be an organized effort by these groups of kids or individuals to come in and raise holy hell. And it does nothing, it makes no argument of any cognizant sense or awareness. And it simply makes things worse for them because people see it, and it immediately reinforces all of the worst stereotypes, which unfortunately appear to just be true among certain segments of the population.
Because nothing about what I just saw is okay. My kids were afraid. The people in the store were very nervous. I heard parents telling their kids, "Shut up, I have to think." People literally frantically trying to figure out what they may need to do to get out of a very tough situation.
And you think about it, I mean, it's like this is a black woman, okay? And she's being surrounded by not well-meaning black kids who could quite literally at any moment do something horrible that can't be taken back, putting her and her children in jeopardy. All right, like the fatigue is real, and the fatigue is not racially separated, okay? Like all people are fatigued by those who behave in this manner.
This is not okay. Chicagoans are being terrorized by these teens. CPS, turn off the bus cards. Right now, we don't need divvy bikes. We don't need scooters. There has to be a citywide mandatory curfew for these kids. Mayor Brandon, do something. It's not okay for people to be terrorized in a Trader Joe's on a Monday night while they're grabbing some groceries. You have to fix this situation. This is not acceptable. It is dangerous, because if I would have been carrying, I had to literally frantically load groceries into my car while teen boys who were taller and bigger than me were all around my vehicle and all throughout the lot. Not everybody's going to be patient, and not everybody's going to be understanding. You're putting the teens at risk by not quickly getting a solution together. Fix the teen takeover situation immediately. Mayor Brandon, Governor Pritzker, put y'all big heads together and get a solution.
Yeah, I don't have any faith that that's going to happen, but I think Christian's message is universal. And what she said about carrying, I mean, it's only a matter of time before something like this happens and somebody is carrying and they're forced into a position where they have to defend themselves. Now, perhaps representative of some of those teens who would engage in this type of behavior, there's a new trend going around on TikTok, I guess, and it's called the Austin Bop. And it is young black kids who are supporting Carmelo Anthony, dancing around and either holding a knife to their chests and mocking the death of Austin Metcalf, or just dancing in such a way that they pretend to be him dying. And there's a whole song for it and everything. And it's one of the most disturbing things that I've yet to see. The people that are gleefully celebrating the death of Austin Metcalf, this tells you that it's also only a matter of time before somebody like this pulls a Carmelo Anthony and simply goes out in public and kills a person because they're white. And it just goes on and on like that. Like, there's no shortage of these videos. It is highly, highly disturbing. All right. Now, I wanted to buttress that with some good news. President Trump, when he first came into office, signed an executive order detailing and sort of making sure that products that are made in America are actually made in America. Now, as part of that effort to ensure Made in America really is made in America, the United States has just removed 22 Chinese manufacturers from federal procurement because they were falsely labeling their items as made in America. And of course, they were doing business against real made in American companies.
Chinese manufacturers falsely claiming their products were made in America to evade U.S. tariffs. Now, 22 of them can no longer sell to U.S. federal agencies. The Trump administration barred federal agencies on Friday from purchasing their goods. The enforcement took place after a 3-week probe stemming from an executive order issued by Trump, requiring federal agencies to aggressively target fraudulent Made in America claims. The probe into these Chinese manufacturers was triggered after New York-based Cheryl Manufacturing raised concerns about certain competitors. The company said China-based firms were falsely claiming domestic origin on a government procurement platform. It also said those products were only partially assembled in the United States and cannot be called Made in America. Cheryl Manufacturing is the only remaining manufacturer of 100% American-made stainless steel flatware.
And I actually, I believe, have flatware from them that was sent by a friend from the chat, Bill. He sent Lisa and I flatware when we got married. So thank you very much. The only made in American flatware. Yes. So we also have another fraudster that was discovered. This time, another Haitian national. This guy made $58 million in drug clinic fraud, and he's obviously facing years in prison, but also deportation. So last year, as part of this large healthcare fraud takedown, the largest in history, prosecutors charged Haitian national Jean Jethro Alexander with a scheme that ran 2 clinics as fraudulent prescription pill mills. So on paper, the clinics would treat patients for HIV and other sexually transmitted diseases. But the truth of the matter is, the clinics existed just to harvest the discounts that the 340B drug discount program confers to HIV medications. Earlier this spring, Alexander was sentenced with prison time in order to pay $14.3 million in restitution, which, as you can see, doesn't even touch the amount that he actually stole. Now, if you're wondering why Alexander, a citizen of Haiti, can come to the United States and easily rake in tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money through criminal fraud, your answer is the program itself. You see, you've been doing it wrong, guys. The people out there living their lives without any fraud or crime, you've just been doing it wrong. Everybody else figured out how to defraud the government of the United States, and they have become multimillionaires as a result. You have to wonder, even though he's being imprisoned and even though he may be deported back to Haiti after his prison time is done, how much of his money was he able to get out of the United States before then? Even if he pays back $14.3 million, how much money, how many possessions is he still going to have as a result of his criminal activity? A couple of years in prison, that's nothing. When you get out and you go to Haiti and you're like the richest guy on the island, you've got all sorts of money, or you can just go to some African nation where you bought land and you had a house built. The 340B program was built so theoretically clinics would be able to buy medicines cheaply, and then they could stretch the savings to make treatment affordable for lower income patients. Obviously, that's noble, but there's a lot of abuse in this program. And as the case with Alexander shows, it goes way beyond just wasteful spending or clerical errors or improper billings. This guy was a criminal fraudster. Federal prosecutors in Florida, which is where he was running this scam, described in granular detail how these criminal fraudsters loot the 340B program and get millions of dollars from their criminal actions. The mechanics are necessary to understand because it's highly likely that they are being repeated elsewhere. This guy is not alone. His clinics would allegedly pay kickbacks to recruiters and to willing patients who would be willing to request these prescriptions. They would falsify dispensing records, and then they would dispose of the medications because actually supplying patients with life-saving drugs wasn't actually part of the plan. Prosecutors put the fraud at $58 million in false claims. So these are drugs that are meant for low-income HIV patients. They were bought with taxpayer-subsidized discounts, and then they were just thrown in the trash, and the fake clinics would submit the bills to Medicare, and then the government would just cut them a check. This is exactly why the White House Fraud Task Force is so vitally important, and why I get so excited about it every single time we have an opportunity to discuss it. There has never in our lifetimes been any measure of attention paid to the tremendous amount of fraud that is going on inside the federal government. Inside each and every one of these federal programs, there is somebody just like Alexander who has figured out how to game the system, who has figured out how to siphon out as much money as possible. Look at what we discovered in Minnesota, in Ohio, in Maine. These migrant populations, whether they be Haitian or Somali or whatever, these people are given the advantage. They are trained how to come here and how to defraud the United States of America. They see us as stupid. They see us as morons. They see us as worthy of ripping off because we're too dumb to even stop them. We literally open the door, leave our wallet on the coffee table in the living room, and say, make yourselves at home. And we have, up until this point, allowed them to do this. It just burns my ass to think about the state of America, the amount of debt that this country is in, the federal debt, the federal deficit, and just like conceptualizing how much of that money is just in the hands of criminals. We have literally, for the entirety of our lives, been living under the thumb of a criminal enterprise. The United States certainly did not exist to serve the interests of the American people. The United States existed to serve the criminal activities of a large group of people. So many different groups of criminal actors all working together to defraud the United States of America and make sure that we would never be able to get ahead. So widespread, the 340B fraud has exploded from roughly $5 billion in discounted purchases back in 2010 to more than $66 billion by 2023. That's across thousands of covered entities and contract pharmacies. I sure hope, and I believe that they are, looking at every single one of them. High-cost specialty drugs and antiretrovirals, these are apparently very, very lucrative. So the program has, for the most part, run with very little verification of where the drugs actually end up. When a subsidy is that large and is that lightly policed, it's practically inviting the type of criminal fraud that Mr. Alexander engaged in. Again, it's like opening your front door, leaving your entire bank account on the table and saying, hey guys, I'm just going to be out back cooking on the grill. Please don't steal my wallet. It's right there. The Department of Health and Human Services is now fully aware of the risk, and it's why a pilot program was run to reform the rebate system and ensure the integrity of these patients. But unfortunately, that was held up under litigation because every single thing that the administration has tried to do to try to fix the problems that are inherent in the system under which we live has been fought tooth and nail at every turn. Why? Because the people fighting are the people who are taking advantage of the system. They are the people who have been front and center for enslaving the people of the United States. Alexander has been sentenced. He's ordered to pay restitution. Justice, you may say, has been served. But again, there are so many other people out there who are likely engaging in just that. Now, I'd like to show you another feel-good video, and I would like to suggest to you once again that all immigration be shut down in any respect. We have a number of countries that President Trump has turned off immigration for, but I think we have so many people here, so many people we don't even know are here, and so many people who are acting in bad faith that we can't afford to let anybody else in. But the people we do let in oftentimes are simply the wrong people. F diversity, okay? F inclusion. I don't want people to come here just because somebody believes that having somebody's different skin tone is going to be good for the United States. No. We have to invite people, if they're going to be invited, who share our sensibilities, who share our values. And one of those groups, President Trump, has shown tremendous courage and incredible action in inviting the Afrikaners as the only group of refugees and asylum seekers. This is a video from a guy by the name of Logan Mayberry. He traveled to South Africa, and he saw a little Afrikaner boy rolling a tire down the street, and he asked him to come over so that he could talk to him.
Where are you taking the tire?
It's scrap.
You wanted to sell it?
Yeah.
How much you want?
Not too much, just for eating.
Just for eating?
Yeah, maybe groceries or something like that to see.
So this little Afrikaner boy has a used tire, which, you know, I mean, probably not worth very much. He's wearing slippers. His hands and face are dirty. His hair looks unwashed. He's trying to sell this tire so that he can get a little bit of money for food.
For groceries?
Yeah, like little food.
Yeah. How far are you going with it?
You see, when you go straight like this, there's a tavern. Yeah, at the back of the tub.
Are you staying there?
Yeah, they call it the last house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how much can be good for you to buy food?
Maybe
10 rand, 20 rand is fine.
Yeah,
what do you want to buy?
I want to buy bread and acho, something like that.
Bread and acho?
Yeah. They're around.
Alright. Oh, that's good.
Is there somewhere to get food around this area?
This area?
Yes.
Not. It's only my spaza shops.
Spaza shops?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I have something here. Here, take 100.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man. Yeah, here, take another one. Yes. That's for you, my friend. God bless you. Yeah. Here.
Yes, serious?
Yes, here, take another one. It's for you, man. You know what's special? We were driving around asking God to lead us somewhere, and then we saw you. And we just wanted to bless you. God wants to bless you.
Thank you.
Yes. Here. Here, take this.
So you can buy food?
So you can buy food.
This is Logan and my name is B.I. Parrot.
Thank you.
He's in shock.
Bless you. So you can take it and throw it away to you, but you're just gonna buy food for yourself, brother.
Thank you.
God bless you, man. Here, give me a hug.
This poor kid. You know, the plight of the Afrikaners is, for a long time, has been overlooked. And just because they're white, okay? And President Trump is the first world leader to ever address it. I've never seen anybody else even broach the subject. And, you know, it's sad. You know, I would love to figure out a way to bring this kid and his family to the United States as refugees. And who knows, maybe now they will. Maybe this is something that's going to happen. But the fact of the matter is that the Afrikaner people, they have roots in South Africa. South Africa is their country. They may have come there as colonists hundreds of years ago, well before the United States was ever a nation. But they don't have anywhere else to go. You know, they get kicked off their land. They get shoved into a slum. And they also have been jerked around by the government when people have tried to come to the United States. There are bad faith humanitarian organizations that have quite literally told people that they're going to bring them to the United States, had them dispose of all of their possessions, essentially making them homeless. And then at the moment they're supposed to fly out, they're told that it's not happening. Okay, so then what do? You know, it would be like if things got so bad here in the United States that we were made to feel not welcome and that we should basically just die or go live under a bridge or something like that. You know, these Afrikaners that want to stay in South Africa, they have a connection to the land. They don't want to leave despite how bad it is, because it's their hope that they can in some fashion fix this or make a life for themselves again. And then, of course, there are others who don't have any options, and so they happily come to the United States as refugees. These are the people that we should be inviting in. These are the people who need to be given space here. I saw somebody in the chat, Umidad. Looks like Umidad says, I left South Africa in '84. I knew what was coming. Yeah, you were there, right there at the tail end of so-called apartheid. Apartheid, you know, gets such a bad rap. But the apartheid environment, which was essentially just, you know, I mean, whites being with whites and blacks being with blacks, people of similar cultures and backgrounds existing amongst each other, just doing their own thing. That's what led to the peace and the prosperity that South Africa was able to achieve. And as soon as the so-called apartheid ended, and the government was handed over to the black South Africans, corruption took root. Everything started to fall apart. And then the overt hatred and killings of white people began to ramp up in earnest. And it's only gotten worse over the years. So my heart goes out to this boy. And I really, really wanted to ask for everybody here to pray for him, because I hope that he didn't just get mugged after he leaves these guys. I hope that they helped him get someplace and maybe make sure that he gets the food that he and his family needs. But I saw this earlier and I just started crying, because I mean, it breaks my heart to imagine that being any child's way of life. You know, he was willing to take 10 rands for a tire that he probably knew nobody wanted, and they ended up giving him like 500 or 600 rands. I don't know what that is in terms of the exchange rate or what he can get with that. But you know that is a lot of money for that kid, probably more money than he ever could have hoped to get any other way. All right, now, have some good news for you. In North Carolina, ICE just caught the commander of 2 foreign terrorist organizations. He was living openly in this small town, but he was holding his wife hostage. His name is Felipe Del Aquia. He was a commander of the PCC and the Comando Vermelho. This is 2 different criminal empires in Brazil, 2 of the largest criminal empires in Brazil. Both of them have, by the United States government, been designated as foreign terrorist organizations. And when federal agents moved in, he apparently ran. He led police on a high-speed chase, and then it ended when he crashed into stop traffic. So right here, a terrorist commando from Brazil living in the United States of America. Don't know how long he was here for, but this is what we are fighting against. We had our door open, and these people just walked through. All right. Now, unfortunately, we also have another case with another criminal illegal alien who entered the United States, this time from Russia, in 2022 during Joe Biden's administration. He struck a truck driver and killed the man, an American citizen, because this guy was watching YouTube on his iPad. His name is Georgy Gabiev, and he was reportedly learning English by watching YouTube on his iPad while he was driving, and he blew through a stop sign and slammed into a truck driver in Chippewa County, Minnesota. This is back in 2024. But the victim was a man by the name of Tim Tarnowski. He died on impact, and federal law enforcement officers finally arrested Gabiev last week. That's why you're now hearing about this. So ICE has arrested this illegal immigrant who caused a fatal crash in Minnesota back in 2024. If it was up to Minnesota, he would have just stayed out there and never paid the price for his crime. He came here in 2022, and he pled guilty to criminal vehicular manslaughter, but he only served, get this, 120 days in jail. 120 days in jail. 4 months in jail for taking the life of another person, and they knew he was an illegal alien. He even told law enforcement at the time of the crash he was listening to a program on an iPad that was teaching him how to speak English. ICE arrested him on June 9th. He's going to be in custody until he is deported. Absolutely insane. All right. Now, we have a conservative group headed by Tony Perkins, who has come forth and after the bombshell revelations about the SPLC, he is demanding some type of restitution or reparations because Tony, the president of the FRC, his organization was listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as one of their groups on their hate map. Now, this organization was labeled a hate group back in 2010, and they claim because it was anti-LGBT. So Perkins spoke with Fox News Digital, and he said he does not want the federal government to shut down the SPLC. He just wants them to be forced to pay restitution for the harm they've caused. FRC had to pay out $8 million out of pocket just for heightened security since the day of the shooting. Apparently, there was a shooting as a result of their being labeled a hate group. Let me see if we've got a clip here of Tony referring to the incident that took place. Okay, actually, it looks like the video is broken. So, let me pull this up in another page right here. Okay, so, where is it? Okay, I guess that it doesn't work here either. Wait a second. Is my ad blocker off? Yeah. Yeah, the ad blocker is off. All right, so it doesn't work. All right. So, what happened? All right, so go back up here. Okay, so this guy was a victim of violence after he and his organization were branded as a hate group. Tony Perkins is the president of the Family Research Council. They're a conservative nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. After they were labeled as a hate group in 2010, in 2012, there was a shooting that was directly related to the Southern Poverty Law Center's branding of them as a hate group. So Perkins was in a meeting when the security system on the building was triggered. He said, the doors closed on our floor and I heard some commotion, so I ran out to see what it was, and I was told that there was a shooting downstairs. And he ran down into the lobby and he said, all I saw was carnage. By the time I got down there, the police had arrived, and we saw Leo Johnson, who was our building manager. He was in a pool of blood. Johnson had been shot by Floyd Lee Corkins II, who was 28. He pulled a gun out of his bag when he entered the building. He got past security by telling them he was interviewing for a position as an intern. Corkins was found to be in possession of two 15-round magazines, a box of 9mm ammunition, and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. The sandwiches were meant to be smeared on the faces of his victims, as Corkins also believed that Chick-fil-A was anti-gay. It was a shocking day for our staff, especially there was glass and blood and bullet holes in the lobby, Perkins said. Perkins is a pastor and a former police officer. He said he never expected to see anything like that again after he finished his career in law enforcement. Corkins was taken into federal custody immediately after the attack and charged with committing an act of terrorism while armed, assault with intent to kill while armed, and interstate transportation of a firearm and ammunition for the purposes of committing these acts. He's currently serving a 25-year prison sentence. He pled guilty to the charges back in 2013. In his interrogation video, later released by the Family Research Council, investigators asked him how the Family Research Council became a target. And he said it was the Southern Poverty Law Center lists of anti-gay groups, Corkins said. I found them online. I did a little bit of research. I went to the website, stuff like that. So it's not just a theory that the Southern Poverty Law Center's branding of the Family Research Council as a hate group led to this shooting. It was actually the statement of the shooter himself. All right. Now, this is for any of the data center people, the data center activists out there. Amazon is attempting to get a Virginia government to allow them to dump the water from their data centers into Lake Anna. Now, you might ask, well, it's wrong. It's just water, right? Water going back into water shouldn't be a big problem. Well, there's a huge problem with it because Amazon Web Services is trying to release 280,000 gallons a day of cooling water from their data centers into Sedges Creek, which leads into Lake Anna. Amazon says that they would only do it during the hottest periods of the year, which they predict would only be 4% of the time. But I think anybody who might be concerned about this could imagine many different instances where Amazon could say, well, now that we've got the permission to do it, we could just do it anytime we want. The problem with the water is that it's not just water after it's gone through the cooling systems to cool down all of these data rigs. The water is also much, much warmer than the ambient temperature of the water that they're going to be dumping it into, which by increasing the temperature of that water, very hot water poured into cool water, it's going to raise the temperature of all the water. That could likely kill the fish population of amphibians that live in the water, and all sorts of things that live in the creek and then live in the lake. The other aspect of it, that is because of the cooling systems that the water runs through, it means that the water picks up trace amounts of zinc, copper, aluminum, and cadmium, which of course would also be disastrous for the environment.
Amazon Web Services wants to release water from its data centers into Louisa County's natural water sources, including Lake Anna. But first, it needs to get permission from state regulators.
Tonight, the DEQ hosted a public hearing about the permit. But as Maggie Glass tells us, the meeting did not go as planned after people found out their voices would not be heard.
In order to speak during this meeting, you had to have already submitted comments to the DEQ, whether that was written comments or you spoke during a previous public hearing. But the majority of people here did not meet that qualification, leading to lots of frustration and unresolved questions. Tuesday's meeting in the Louisa County Middle School intended to be a time to respond back to the DEQ's published answers to questions about a draft permit related to Amazon's Lake Anna Tech Campus. But it quickly turned combative after only 4 people out of the dozens there were actually allowed to weigh in.
You can certainly allow someone else who cares to speak on the subject.
We are affected by this, and this bothers me that it's where we can't speak. We cannot put our values out there.
DEQ. Sit down, peasant. You don't have the right to speak. Amazon pays us a lot of money.
Reps there responding to the criticism, citing state legislation that lays out the permit process.
I did not write the law. I am implementing the law.
The draft permit on the table would give Amazon Web Services permission to release 280,000 gallons a day of cooling water from its data centers into Sedges Creek, which flows into Lake Anna. Amazon says it would only use this method during the hottest periods, which it predicts to be 4% of the year. Not everyone Tuesday was buying that.
All right, here's what they're actually...
All right, so the only way that I think it should be permissible for cooling water to be dumped into a lake or a body of water is if it's gone through proper filtration and cleaning to ensure that it is clean water, and through that process, they could easily run it through a cooling process as well to make sure that when it goes into the creek or the body of water, not only is it clean, but it's also matching the ambient temperature of the water that it is being put into. But I don't understand why they would ever need to dump this water in the first place. I thought that one of the big issues surrounding these data centers is that there is a constant need for water for the for the cooling of these servers. So why don't they just recycle the water? Why don't they cool it themselves, keep it in a closed loop system, and then continuously run it? Better yet, why don't they do what people do on very powerful computer rigs? I don't have one of these, but there are quite literally antifreeze cooling blocks that you can get for your PCs to keep all of your components cool. Antifreeze is going to work a hell of a lot better at keeping these systems cooler. It's just that, of course, Amazon would have to pay for that. But they have so much damn money. They would have no problem working that into their existing business model. Amazon makes money hand over fist. This is the shit that pisses me off about this data center issue, is because it's so obvious that the local governments are in the pockets of the giant corporations that are seeking to get as good a deal as they possibly can, to the dangers of the residents of these communities and obviously to the dangers of the environment. It's hilarious that they lecture to us about pollution and carbon and climate change and all of that bullshit, but when it comes down to it, they have zero qualms about destroying the environment themselves. Everything is so short-sighted with these people. All right, I need to say thank you very much to Sean Joe for the can. Thank you for the cookie as well. Thank you to Boys Blanc for the cookie. Thank you again, Sean Joe, for another cookie. Thank you to Darla, who says, a teacher in Colorado was fired for making girls kiss each other and grading them. Unbelievable. I saw that. I was planning on talking about it, but we went overtime on everything else. Benny Johnson sent notification about Michael Obama responding to the UFC controversy. I haven't watched it. Been here where the news is reliable. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I will look into this tonight, and it will be what I open with tomorrow if there is an actual statement from Michelle Obama. Michael Obama, pardon me. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. All right, you guys, that will be it. We will go ahead and close it out there. I want to thank everybody for being here with us today. Thank you for hitting the like button if you have. If you haven't yet, then please consider doing so. Also consider helping us by sharing the show. That would be awesome. I see no more donations over on Rumble, so just thank you very much to everybody who has supported the show today. I'm going to go ahead and check Cash App real quick before I close it out. And then I'm going to go get some dinner with my wife. And, of course, you know, I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Nothing, and that's fine. Hope you guys have a great night. Good luck. God bless. I'll see you soon.